You're listening to EWBSX, the cyberbully. The pendulum is swinging.
Good morning, everyone, and happy Monday. It is time for the ASTROLABE. If you guys are behind on the times, you may not know, but this is the new time for the Labe. This is when we get together. It is now in the morning, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Morning ASTROLABE. Shooting for going live sometime in the 7 to 8 a.m. window, Central Time. Sometime in there, the pre-show will begin. Give you guys the alert. Time to see the alert, time to wander your way on in here. And for the early birds, you get a nice little morning EWBSX session with yours truly in the chat. Shout out to the replay gang if you guys are watching later on. I do invite you to come join us for a pre-show one of these days. Perhaps the move to the morning schedule will make that easier for you to do. I know that evenings are kind of hard for some people. And there's a few of you guys who have made the transition. You guys could do morning or evening. I appreciate you. And then there are new names that are showing up, or even re-showing up. They showed up in the past, but they couldn't do the evening schedule. So it's good to see you guys as well. Please do remember to tip your streamer. The tips link is pinned in the chat. Tips.kingpill.com. This is my primary source of income for the family. So I show up and I stream for you guys. And if you enjoy it, we do a little value for value. I give you some value through the screen, and then you give me some value through the wallet. So tips.kingpill.com was the place for that. And make sure you signed up at forum.kingpill.com. If we do hit the tip goal today for today's stream at $400, if we hit that goal, then I will do a drawing. I will pick one name from the people who have signed up at forum.kingpill.com, and they will get 10% of whatever the total night's take or total morning's take is. I'm going to keep doing this. Morning, evening, the total morning's take, you will get 10% of that sent to you in the form of a digital gift card to the retailer of your choice. I'm obligated to say there is no purchase necessary, and all I need is just a way to contact you. So forum.kingpill.com, go sign up for that. And also, you should join the King Pill Discord. You're missing out if you're not in there. We will be having our voice chat, the King Pilled voice chat for this week. I believe is going to be Friday. I need to just double check some things to confirm that. Navigating around the Pascha weekend, but I believe Friday night. I reserve the right to, at the last minute, change it back to Wednesday if I decide Wednesday is going to work better for this week. But the goal is to get back to Friday night going forward. for that as well. So kingpill.com if you would like to join the Kingpill Discord and join us for those voice chats. Those are some fun times. You never know; it might just turn into an impromptu off the record podcast between Jason Miranchuk and I, because that is known to happen. Thank you to Clouded Sensorium for renewing your subscription over on Kick, and then Pale Morning Dude sending some kicks in this morning. Shout out to you guys. And I was just looking, just a reminder. Um, the benefit of Kick over YouTube is not just the whole algorithm thing and all of that, but the money is such a there's such a big difference. The audience on Kick is smaller than it was on YouTube for sure. Ever since I moved over to Kick, the audience has diminished significantly because it's kind of difficult to grow the platform on Kick. There's other stuff that I have to do to make the audience larger, but the revenue share difference between Kick and YouTube is just it's immense. I'm easily making more money through Kick than I ever did through YouTube. With what do I have? 557 followers on Kick and 151 subs currently. I am making significantly more on Kick than I did on YouTube. We're still talking low numbers here, but the different it's because Kick gives you 95% of whatever the subs are or any revenue that comes through. Kick takes 5% of it. YouTube takes anywhere from 30 to 70% of it. There are some revenue sources on YouTube where you get a 30% cut and YouTube keeps 70%. You know what? I suppose if I had some sort of a monopoly on a platform, I might govern it similarly. I don't know. I've never been in that situation, so I can't say for sure. But I got to say, from the perspective of someone who earns an income through these platforms, I will take a smaller audience on Kick for a much larger percentage of the revenue. Hands down, no question whatsoever. So yeah, the gifted subs, only 5% of that is going to Kick. There is another probably 3% that goes through the payment processor because the gifted subs end up going through PayPal or Stripe generally. So they take their additional cut. So it's not exactly what it is. That's kind of why I try to shoot a little higher with the tip goal, just to account for that. But anyways, thank you guys for your continued support of the show, and my family and I are deeply indebted to you. My wife is waiting in the chat right now, ready to begin adding to her nice list. Her nice list is like the lottery or whatever you call this, the sign up at forum.kingpill.com. I wipe it out at the end of every month. Amy's gets wiped out at the end of every episode. She's a very she holds a high standard. You must meet my wife's high standard. So she will be adding you to the nice list. And if you want to get on her nice list, then you just contribute monetarily some way to support the stream. All right, so what are we talking about today? The Iran war. What really just happened in Iran? Nice vague kind of clickbaity title. It probably isn't going to perform that well, but I was like, whatever, just type something in there. What really just happened in Iran? There's this great escapade that happened over the weekend. We're going to go into a lot of the detail on it, just to try to cover all the bases, make sure we understand the sequence of events as it's being told to us. But there was a American jet. The story is there was an American fighter jet that was shot down or went down somehow over Iran. The pilot and I don't remember it's a WSO. I don't know what his actual role is, even navigator or something like that. There's two of them, and they both ejected, and the pilot was rescued immediately. The other guy was not. And so there was this great big escapade to go in there and extract him. And there's so many different, in one brief little couple day long stretch, so many different narratives and things have emerged from it that are it was one of those like weekends where months happen. So there's lots of different threads to try to pick up on here, and I'm going to try to touch on a couple of them today. I also want to tie in part of this with the Artemis mission, and more specifically the Artemis Accords. I'm pretty sure that I referenced this. I had just a brief mention of it on a previous episode because I couldn't find if I hadn't mentioned it yet, I would have had it open in a tab somewhere, and I couldn't find it. So I'm assuming that I already mentioned this thing about the Artemis Accords. But in our whole conversation about how uh, Trump serves as sort of like the figurehead or the tip of the spear for a uh, a mass effort among an increasing number of the various different elites with their various interests, and an increasing coalition of them are mobilizing behind him to completely reorder the global monetary and economic and diplomatic order. Um, so a weapons officer in the backseat. Okay, yeah, they were called RIOs, radar intercept officers. Interesting. Okay. Um, so within that light, there's some interesting threads that I think we can connect between the Artemis Accords and what is or isn't happening in Iran. This is a I think this weekend has served as a great microcosm of the entire thing, in which um, I think there's very likely a divergence between the narrative about why it's happening or about what is happening and what is actually happening, the actual facts on the ground. But that I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing per se. And also it almost doesn't matter, because with some of these, this is sort of like living in the new digital age. The actual narrative that is taken away from a given event is as important, if not more important, than the actual facts of what happened in the event. Because narratives can spin up and spiral off so quickly, people can react and then react to the reaction and then the react to the react to the reaction, and this cycle happens so quickly that that a narrative about a particular event can take legs enough that it's as if the event actually occurred as the narrative says it does, just given the way the rest of the action reaction cycle develops around it. So I think this weekend, what was it a downed aircraft? Did that actually happen? Was it actually a rescue mission? Was it perhaps a rescue mission that emerged in the midst of another mission? Was it nothing having to do with a rescue mission whatsoever, and this is just the cover story? It could be kind of like any combination of all of the above, and I think there's reasons to explore and consider those hypotheses. So I posted in the King Pill Discord yesterday. I'd been kind of musing on this and hadn't seen anybody say it yet, so I just wanted to like have it on the record somewhere that I'm just going to go on the record and just hypothesize that this was not a rescue mission at all. That the rescue mission was a cover story for some other kind of operation, and specifically some sort of operation related to the highly enriched uranium. Because there's a few other stories that have kind of popped up around it that lead me to suspect or wonder that. And then there's the fact that the different coalitions that are engaged, that are sort of broadly on separate sides in this whole ordeal, that itself is kind of fluid. There's a lot of diplomacy that's happening in and around this, and some of it's hard to tell whether it's pre-scripted or whether it's just kind of people jumping at some sort of an emergent opportunity, if it's sudden changes in power kind of within given regions, and it's implicating every different part of the world all at the same time. So like being able to track what's actually happening versus what's reporting is one thing. Then what's tracking what's actually being reported is a whole nother thing. And then there's how what's being reported is affecting narratives and emerging powers and that sort of thing elsewhere. And we've lived, for the majority of the human species, we've lived in a time where these sorts of things progress relatively methodically and in a fairly straightforward order. There's a lot more I don't know, refractory periods, downtimes between major decision points, but things are happening faster and faster and faster. It's like time is speeding up, kind of. And this sense of acceleration, I think, is what's very destabilizing to people. People can feel it in your essence. You can feel the destabilizing sense of everything right now. Even though you can kind of like extract yourself from that, and you can go out and go for a walk and look around, and you're like, yeah, the sun is shining and the birds are twittering away, and and nice breeze and everything's kind of hunky dory. At the same time, there's still that sense of instability, and I think this is because of the accelerating event to event to event cycle process. It's really picking up on us. Um, it's called Xing now on Twitter. Yeah, I'll never be able to do that. That's just not going to happen. I sometimes I can say X, but it's just tweeting. I did notice the other day that it actually on the app. This is how detail oriented I am with some of these things. I looked on the app and it doesn't even say retweet anymore. It says repost. No idea how long that's been the case. I never actually read it. I just hit the button, but it actually says repost now. So they're not tweets, they're posts, and then you repost them. Yeah, I'm never gonna do that. Okay, so let's get started here. So the very first thing, we're gonna start with a national revival video. We don't usually do that, but today it's worthwhile. This video, the actual like video content, not the song in the background, but the actual video content was posted by the Boston Red Sox in honor of their home opener at Fenway Park. And there is just about nothing more distinctly American, evocative of the essence of Americana, than baseball in the early to mid 19th century. And so National Revival set this, put a little musical track to the back of it. It says, there's nothing more radicalizing than watching archival footage and then simply taking a walk outside. The Red Sox actually had to lock the replies on their original tweet with this video because it was just like mass neuron alert of Americans going, hold on a second. That's not what it looks like now. And I can pick out some really distinct things that differentiate now from then.
Boston skyline bids welcome as it looms over the Charles River Basin. Tulips in the public gardens signal another New England springtime. Red Sox fans have had a long winter's wait, and they're always eager to be at Fenway for opening day. Yes, sir, let's go to the ball game. We're outside with the crowd right now on the Jersey Street side of the park. Time for that program, though. That scorecard, peanuts now. Baseball and Gansett a bit later. It's the opening of another baseball season, and the usual colorful ceremonies get things off to a good start. And another season is underway as the Boston team breaks onto the field. Well, here's the first pitch, and the season is officially underway.
Look at the people.
Boston skyline bids welcome as
Oh man, I don't remember living in a time like that, but I remember living in a time that felt like it was the same place as that. I think that's the best way that I could put it. I would imagine that maybe Zoomers might have the hardest time feeling like they can relate to this, and I can't relate to it directly. I was thinking of this is almost like if you were trying to strictly hit on like the nostalgia of it, then it would be propaganda for like boomers or even like silence. But for me, I don't obviously I never experienced that America, but I experienced an America where I watched things like this and was like, oh yeah, that's America. That's my country. It will return. Speaking of the beautiful game, this is one of the so I've told you guys about my past like sports ball career. And this has been one of my guilty pleasures. I mean, I don't know, not guilty. One of the things that I just have retained is following some of these sorts of things. Rob Friedman, pitching ninja, a Seattle-based fella. I remember when he first. When did he create his account? How do you see that information on? Well, anyways, maybe click here. I don't use X on the desktop enough. Yeah, December 2014. I remember that. I remember when he created his account. Look at this. This is the most insane of these videos that I've ever seen. People talk about how difficult it is to hit a pitch in baseball, like as an athletic feat. How difficult it is to do. This is one of those. Look at this. Nolan McLean from the Mets. He has an 84-mile-an-hour sweeper, which has 22 inches of break, and then a 97-mile-per-hour two-seamer with 18 inches of run. This is both pitches separately, and then he overlays them together. 40 inches of horizontal movement difference. And watch his delivery. Watch the rhythm of his delivery. And he's going to pause the video at the release point for both of these pitches. And imagine being this dude trying to hit this shit. Insane amount of tail on it.
It's tied up and he went around the half swing.
What?
Field.
Look at that!
Opposite field. It's tied up.
That's like the length of his bat.
Opposite field.
Imagine that. This is probably, I'm going to guess this is probably a third of the way toward home. It's just after the release. It's maybe like a quarter of the way toward home. Look how close they are. And then look where they wind up. That is utterly insane. And this dude has, I don't know, like between 0.6 and 0.8 of a second to decide whether I'm going to swing or not, to pull the trigger on swinging. He's lucky he didn't catch that pitch in the teeth. He was entirely unprepared for that. That is brutal. And how about a little more baseball nostalgia, but for a little more recent of a time. If you're going to do steroids, do it like Mark McGwire.
Kids nowadays, man, they're all on trend. They're doing peptides, testosterone, pumping gear for what? To look like 50 Cent after chemo? If you're gonna do steroids, pick up a fucking bat, get in the cage, start hitting dingers, and save America's pastime like a man. That's what Mark McGwire did. He didn't inject enough D-ball to kill a horse just to get a good hinge pick so it could bang a couple sevens. He did it to bang 70s. 70 home runs in 1 year. He had so many home runs, the Pope requested to meet him. He had so many home runs, they named the highway after him. He had so many home runs, this guy threw at his head. The man took 90 to the dome and charged the mound mid-concussion. These aren't show muscles, sweetheart. No one's impressed that you're killing your liver just to put up 100-pound dumbbells. Mark McGwire destroyed his liver so he could take a 100-mile-per-hour Randy Johnson fastball 538 feet into the second deck in center field. No one cares about your jawline, buddy. What's your forearm girth? Because these forearms carried an entire sport from the grave and reminded everyone why it's the best one ever invented. If you're gonna do steroids, don't be a bitch. Be Mark McGwire.
Hell yeah! Bang Bros era. This was peak baseball coming of age for me. The 90s. The 90s was an incredible time to be a baseball fan, especially to be a Mariners fan. Anyways, shout out Pub Wanghalf, one of our great Patriot posters. A bald eagle watching the launch of Artemis 2. A powerful omen. Look at this. Look at this omen. The Romans would have taken note of this. The ancient peoples would have seen this as an incredibly auspicious moment. The national bird caught in the foreground at the moment of the launch. And someone was there to take this picture. Incredible. Incredible omen. So speaking of Artemis, here's Matt Dines again. I played you guys a video of him the other day talking about the IRGC as being sort of like a private equity firm with a paramilitary. Here's another clip from him, and he says he is a Luangooner, a fellow Luangooner. He says the Artemis missions are about building an American-led growth coalition. Matt Dines frames it as a test of whether America can still back frontier-scale growth, funding new capacity, new technology, and real-world ambition instead of settling for asset inflation. And he makes an analogy in here that I like. The analogy of like going to space is kind of for America what going to the New World was for the European empires. We have a new frontier. We have a new frontier to be explored, and it's fraught with danger and the potential for total catastrophe. But it calls forth this spirit. Those who are frontier-minded want to strive forward into this new future, which is, I think, awakening something within America. That's why you see things like this, and you stop and take note of it. We are living in the midst of history. So this is what Matt Dines has to say about the Artemis Accords.
I believe, not just, in terms of the space program, but American capital markets and growth in general. And failure here was really not an option, right? If this one had failed, it would have been very bad. I'm not kidding when I say
anyone diminishing I am fully on the board as being a deep skeptic of the traditional story of the so-called moon landing. Not because I don't think that America landed on the moon, but because I think America absolutely landed on the moon, whatever the moon is. I think America absolutely landed on the moon and has had operational control of it and to some greater or lesser extent. But there was no possible way that they were going to live stream something that's civilizationally significant. So I think America absolutely landed on the moon. I think that the video of the moon landing was a presentation. It was a piece of propaganda, which makes it an even more extraordinary accomplishment. America has been to the moon. America has been on the moon. I don't buy America hasn't been there. I think that something has. But not only has America actually done that, but they also convinced everyone else to, at the very least, buy in and act as if the thing is real. Because they simply had no other choice. This is such a tremendous statement of the extraordinary might and power of the American state. Straight Buster says, the most reasonable take is that we definitely made it there, but that video is bullshit. Exactly. That's exactly. See? I'm a reasonable man. Reasonable, moderate centrist. We absolutely went there. The video is fake. So like I'm fully aware of the skepticism around NASA, the skepticism around there's all sorts of funky stuff coming out about the videos, and you've got this weird the toilet's leaking and there's this bad smell, and there's everything around the space program just smells like shit to me. Fully granted, recognizing that. And yet, if the Artemis had a catastrophic explosion and it crashed into the sea during that launch, that would have been an epoch-defining moment that would have fundamentally changed history and the story of America forever. The stakes in that moment were incredibly high. Incredibly.
say everything was riding on that thing being a success yesterday evening.
Well, maybe
and they delivered.
Say, everything.
Yeah.
What do you mean when you say everything is riding on that?
Okay, so America, the economy, our monetary system, we need growth to deliver into.
Yeah, imagine a Challenger instance, like a Challenger redux in the middle of that. Can you imagine how civilizationally demoralizing that would have been? That probably would have absolutely cooked the midterms, just immediately that one moment. That would have been the permanent denunciation of MAGA, America First, anything like that. See, look what happens. Look what happens when we turn over our sacred institutions to the chuds. They would have ushered in an epic sweeping of total chud death that is not even fathomable. And yet, isn't it interesting that Trump hasn't said anything about it? I don't know what to make of that. It just occurred to me earlier this morning. Maybe I heard someone say it, or I was listening to a whole bunch of stuff, but isn't it odd that Trump hasn't even mentioned it? Not that I've seen. Maybe there's something I'm forgetting, but I mean, there's lots of other stuff that's going on right now, but for how significant the stakes were with this, and then for him not to say anything about it is very, very interesting to me.
Okay, so America, the economy, our monetary system, we need growth to deliver into, right? And that's really in the Malthusian sense. There is kind of a disbelief, perpetual disbelief that human ingenuity or new products, new technologies will just keep extending the frontier, right? And for all intents and purposes of our own lifetimes, of our, you can think multiple generations out, this frontier, we're not even close, right? It's kind of the I would just call it the American DNA. I think that's how the American psyche thinks. Then you flip on the other side of that debate, you get into the Malthusians, right? We're gonna, outgrow our resources, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We're gonna immediately consume all of that available space, slack resources, et cetera. That'll ultimately.
Okay, I was totally bullshitting. On, let's see here. The night that it launched, he wrote on True Social, tonight at 6:24 p.m. Eastern Time, for the first time in over 50 years, America's going back to the moon. Artemis 2, among the most powerful rockets ever built, is launching our brave astronauts farther into deep space than any human has ever gone. We are winning in space, on Earth, and everywhere in between, economically, militarily, and now beyond the stars. Nobody comes close. America doesn't just compete, we dominate. And then he also mentioned it at the beginning of his national address. He said, let me begin by congratulating the team at NASA and our brave astronauts on the successful launch of Artemis 2. It was quite something. It will be traveling further than any manned rocket has ever flown. God bless them. These are brave people. It's interesting. You always can see there's like the one thing that he'll latch onto about an event or a person or something. And there's always something that's kind of unique and superlative. So here, like the thing that he mentions both times is we're launching our brave astronauts farther into deep space than any human has ever gone. And then he says it will be traveling further than any manned rocket has ever flown. Like that's the hook. That's what defines this project in his mind, is we're going further out into space than we've ever gone before. There you go. Whole project summed up in a sentence. So I guess he has mentioned it. But it also is like, it's like an ongoing thing, and he just mentioned it, which is kind of like, hey, great, this happened, and then he's on to other things. It's just interesting to me that I don't know if there's signal to be had in that, whether it's either he's intentionally keeping attention elsewhere, or it's just another thing that's happening, but it's not one of the most important things on his radar right now. Or there's like the NASA and SpaceX thing, and obviously Isaacman is an admirer of Elon. He was close. He and Elon were close in all of it. So I kind of see NASA as becoming essentially just kind of like a subset of SpaceX by and large. But the politics around it are kind of interesting, and I think it's something I haven't seen a lot of people explore or dig into that much.
Ultimately results in lower standards of living. So we need to convince people to eat the bugs, live in a box, and just agree to that whole premise. You'll own nothing and you'll like it, right? America has to shatter that mindset, and not just live around it. Like, it has to soundly defeat it for this kind of experiment that is self-government, self-rule, self-control, or sovereignty of your own capital markets. You have to prove that you can push that technological frontier, which ultimately gives your economy and your people that potential to grow into, right? And so for the next 5, 10, 20 years, we can have this retreat into American isolationism. But
it's an interesting point that he makes here, that there's like a parallel between, if you want to retain this sense of sovereignty and self-government, this thing that's very characteristic of the American spirit, where we have a government that represents us, and we hire people, we put them in the government. Our expectation is that they're going to serve us and do what we want them to do things that are good for us. There's that just latent expectation that's very much a part of kind of unique and distinct to the American character, and it's gone elsewhere, but it's at its densest form in America. that does not comport well with a like a spirit of satisfaction and contentment. Because of the way that the American, or the way that the human spirit, but really especially the American spirit, is very restless and needs to be drawn out into exploration and conquest and achievement and accomplishment and risk taking. These are things that are they draw the American spirit forth. These are the things that drew Americans across the ocean to become what is America. There was a big selection factor there for people who have that temperament. And then conquering the West, going out across the frontier, settling this gigantic landmass. It takes a very particular type of social temperament. But and that temperament then doesn't sit well with this idea of like zero sum. We're just going to extend out to our limits and stay there. We're not going to press forward beyond it. We're just going to kind of backfill. No, there is no, you cannot put a ceiling on us. That is the same as destroying us, destroying the American ethnos, if you try to place a ceiling on it. And this, I think, is something that is, as we're trying to like map out what the future temperament of the American empire is going to be, I think this is one of them. You're going to see the imperial expression of this sort of like radical sovereignty and aggressive risk-taking and expansion, but in like an upward sense. Not like we're going to go out and we're going to like conquer over and rule over all of you, but we're going to strike out ahead and gain such an overwhelming dominance above you that you have no choice but to draft in our wake. And we're going somewhere. But in order to go somewhere, you have to have somewhere to go, which is what is so symbolically significant about the frontier of space emerging in a more tangible way right now.
Grow into, right? And so for the next like 5, 10, 20 years, we can have this retreat into American isolationism. But if we don't have those projects or that kind of emergent frontier, it's just, there's no growing pie to spread around. There's nothing.
It's like isolationism. You hear isolationism, and the way that it's characterized typically is like, is kind of like pulling everything in around you and being like, no, I'm staying over here. Leave me alone. You've got like the prickles on a porcupine that are all just poking out, and no, I'm staying. I've got my little corner, and I'm going to stay here, and I don't want to be involved with everyone else. But American isolationism is like, I'm not going to stand here and wait for the rest of you guys. I'm just going to start climbing the mountain. And if I have to climb the mountain by myself, I'll climb the mountain by myself. I'll figure it out. You guys can stay here and like make your plans and do your whole thing or whatever, but I'm headed out. I'll go by myself if I have to. That's the American. That would be, it's not isolationism the way that isolationism is thought of, but a lot of people look at that and they're like, oh, America just wants to be by themselves. And no, like, we're happy to be seen and recognized as the leader of the world and have everyone want to be around us because we're cool and they want to benefit from everything that we've created and produced. We're more than happy. We're very Americans are actually relatively like easygoing, non-judgmental sort of people. There's like, I'm happy to get along with you if you want to get along with me. Just don't get in my way. Let me do my thing. So America's going to go climb the mountain, and everyone's welcome to come with us. If you want to climb the mountain with us, if you want to like make it easier going for all of us, then we'd love to have you. But it's going to happen either way.
To increase credit creation into, and ultimately there's no productive debt to fund projects into. So if we can't prove that there's multiple fronts of growth, but space exploration and these Artemis missions are definitely one of them, in my opinion. And so, thinking about this symbolically, right? You've got Artemis, which is the twin sister of Apollo. Think about the Apollo missions of the 1960s, and I think the final one would have been the 1972, right, Cameron? If I remember correctly.
Yeah, I believe so.
It's kind of a return, in my mind, the symbolism here of those kind of two bookends. When we broke the old Bretton Woods standard or the constraint. Nixon took us, or he closed the gold window, right? You go into the first you go through the inflation of the 1970s. You mark up all of the commodities, everything. You debase the dollar, and then you just do this massive credit expansion on the LIBOR standard from 1980 to 2020. And I think like what that represents to me is, we really just, we increase, we did a credit expansion in the global banking system or the global financial system into the framework that was already in existence, right? We talked about the global trade paradigm. We got the iPhone, we got flat screens, and we just milked that one, squeezed every drop out of it. But we're at a point now after COVID where we've got to find that next thing, the next growth to lend into. And it has to be real. It has to actually be like on that frontier where it is, productive debt that's being created into this economy, all that stuff.
Productive debt created into the economy. So we reached this point where there was this big credit expansion, but it wasn't like a credit expansion into the productive economy. It was like a credit expansion into the consumer economy, essentially. And which is a very, that is like a late stage sort of if you think about a person in their own life cycle, it's kind of like you're hitting retirement. You're gonna now you're gonna go spend on all these things with your retirement. Maybe you're gonna like sell your house, buy a new one or whatever. You kind of have this sort of like a last burst expansion of investment and deployment of capital or whatever, but it's deployed toward what's going to suit around me when I'm retired. That's kind of the characteristic of it, which is not where America is in its civilizational cycle. So really what ended up happening here was like non-American interests were subsidized by burning American seed corn. Now, America had such a frickin' massive pile of seed corn that we haven't been completely and utterly decimated because of this, but that's simply a testament of the sheer depth of the capital markets and the relentlessness of the American spirit. But the rest of the world essentially subsidized themselves on our dime. And now we're facing the point where we're going to have to pay the piper for everyone else. So no. But there still has to be some sort of a credit system of some type. But it has to be a credit system that is controlled by the United States and done for the sake of the United States.
To ultimately increase standards of living. My point there,
the bill is coming due for the rest of the world. Put it that way.
The debt on the LIBOR standards, we know this. It was a mix. Some of it might have been productive, but on the net, what happens when you increase credit and it's not going towards productive debt, you're increasing money supply. That shows up in financial assets, right? It's not going into any, lifestyle improvements, et cetera. You're just purely marking up financial and real assets, not just including equity indices, all of that. But it's also, your housing stock or, stuff like that in real terms that people need to live in. So this whole mindset or this whole kind of framework of, between the Apollo and Artemis missions, those twins, everything else, that was a lull. That was, in my mind, a retracement. American growth was not able to kind of realize itself. And these Artemis missions are the proving point. If we don't have those viable, we don't have a next 5, 10, 20 years, if you think about it too. And there's another element around this too, I think, with AI, right? The, upfront AI, is expected to cause job losses, replacement, all of that. You've got a deflationary impact there. You're going to have slack resources in the economy. Those resources need to go towards productive projects. And I think Artemis is just, one arrow in the quiver that America has. And I think it's an exciting one here. I don't think we want to spend too much time going through the full series, but we're on step 2 of what could be a multiple mission sequence here, and we'll just take this as far as it can go. The end game here is it's a pretty big vision, in my opinion. Still don't know if it can be fully realized, but that's the point of exploration. This is like sending out Columbus, Magellan, et cetera, that the Europeans did at the turn of the 15th and 16th centuries. I think America is showing it's the torchbearer on what the West is when it's at its best.
And I think then that leads directly then into the geopolitical piece of this, right? Which, is these Artemis Accords. And so just to give a little background here, NASA, and along with the U.S. State Department, was able to get signatories from, they say here, more than 60 different countries. So obviously, when we start thinking about these scientific kind of projects, you often hear a lot of signatories from different countries, things like that. But Matt, you see this map. Uh, I think you made a few comparisons to other projects the U.S. might be going through as well. So maybe you can explain what you're seeing and any core callouts you want to make with the blue on the map here.
Yep. Well, I'd say notice first the heaviness of the New World, the Americas. I think we've gotten buy-in from, I mean, most of the map, and I expect to continue some of those gray regions, turning some of those gray regions blue. You think about Venezuela, we brought that into the Monroe Doctrine orbit. That should come in blue here. But basically, what I think about these doing, or what I think about happening here, is these economies are buying into this coalition, this project. It's going to be led by the United States, but they're going to contribute resources and align their economies towards this big picture vision, right? So that's the Western hemisphere. You've also got the legacy, post World War II, Western coalition members, all the Eurozone, all the UK. You don't have Ireland flipped on yet. All of Scandinavia. You got Australia, New Zealand, Japan, etc. And then a little bit of GCC representation. India is in as well. What you don't see here is actually kind of the Asian powers, China, Russia, and everybody in between on those land-based Silk Roads. So this is kind of a complementary set, if you will, to what we're talking about, that old order of those maritime trade routes that link up, across the Pacific, transatlantic, Persian Gulf, Indian Ocean, utilizing all these key choke points we've heard so much about in the news over the years. This one here with Artemis, you really separate what's going on with the Asian powers and the land-based Silk Roads. You call it the Belt and Road Initiative countries. And I think from a resource perspective, this is signaling where the puck is going for the other side of that, right? So the U.S. obviously, or the Americas, they'll be somewhat involved with the Belt and Road initiatives, but the bread and butter of that, the backbone is going to be, Marco Polo's trails we saw. Go look at the map. It's going to look very similar to that, and that's where Iran comes in as a key piece. You need that land to be a stable, just kind of stop. You need a stable government along the way with some authority. And
if you note that, just looking at Iran's location here with respect to all of this, you got the GCC countries down here, Turkey, and then you've got Europe. Obviously, everyone's favorite Middle Eastern democracy. But then out here, the reason why India is as significant as it is because of it does have a number of significant natural resources, and also its location with respect to major underseas cables and shipping lanes coming in and out from this area here, coming over through the Strait of Malacca and around over to China. Because if you're trying to get from the Arabian Ocean down, or the Indian Ocean down here, to the Pacific Ocean, the main route that you have to get through there is the Strait of Malacca, right down here. And so this is a major corridor for India, and for not for India, but for China, and for basically everything out here in the Pacific, all of the island Asian nations, the Philippines, Japan, the Koreas. And so India becomes a really significant little finger sticking out here as a stop-off zone, or there's a lot of, I know, internet underseas cables that run through this area here. So there's major global incentives for Iran to become a stable node. And if you've reduced the entire world down to revolving around Israel, then you think that the only reason why anybody would ever have any sort of interest in Iran is because of some commitment to some sort of Israeli dogma. But there's way bigger influences in the world than just the Israel lobby. There's all sorts of other interests, and the world doesn't revolve around Israel. It doesn't begin and end with narratives about Israel. So this particular region right here, where Iran sits, this bridge between kind of Iran and Turkey together, sort of form this bridge between Europe and the Far East. There's major populations and resource corridors and everything that have to go through here. And Russia obviously has substantial interests coming down through that region as well. So there's no way that it's not going to be a major issue if Iran is some sort of a wild card, which is why Iran has been held by the old British imperial remnant for as long as they have. They've held Iran there specifically so that they can manipulate events all in and around between Africa and China, between Europe and the Gulf countries, between Russia and the Gulf countries, between Russia and Africa. Like this is the intersection of all these different interests. So there are a lot of people for all their own different reasons were not satisfied with the status quo with respect to Iran. The problem is it's very difficult to affect change and to do it in such a way that's not going to, number one, completely upset, like send the world spiraling into apocalypse, and also is a way that you can balance all these various different competing interests. So there's a strong incentive for Iran to be a settled matter. Anything except for whatever the status quo was.
With the partners, along the other stops on the road. So I think this map we're seeing on Artemis is actually kind of a leading indicator of where you're going for just where you expect resources to allocate in the future for a cooperative bloc.
Right.
As this project gets bigger and bigger with every success on that Artemis kind of project roadmap.
And to whatever extent that resources can be mined from space, whatever space is. I know that there's lots of debate even within the Astrolabe community. There's lots of debate about what space actually is. But to whatever extent that there are resources to be mined from space, whomever solves that matter first is going to substantially change a lot of the because so much of geopolitics revolves around resource corridors. If suddenly there is a substantial new source of resources, that fundamentally changes the value and the strategy and the tactics and everything associated with many of these different corridors. So entering into this new frontier, think about what it did for relations between European nations and Europe and Russia and Europe and China and like all the different factions that are all moving around in that area. Think about what it did for those different conflict points when suddenly the New World was a thing. And there's all these continents over here with boundless resources that need to be explored and brought back over. It totally changes the calculus. So something like that is well on the way with the new American entry into space. Now, something extremely aggravating is happening at the moment. I don't know what exactly it is, but it seems as if maybe the tip link is not sending automations properly. And I the best I can say for right now while I'm doing this is just try different dollar amounts, see if they come through. There's a couple here that I need to. Let's see. There's a couple that I need to play, but one of them is. Can I do this? Can I make that happen in some way? Hold on a second. No, I don't know how to do that on the fly. Well, anyways, I'll do this. We have from Creek Money, we got one of these. Teal Bucks received. Teal Bucks from Creek Money. Thank you, sir. He says, I vote for Morning Labe. Yeah, I'm enjoying the Morning Labe. This is Morning Labe has won. Thank you, sir, for the Teal Bucks. I am majorly bummed out that for whatever reason the thing isn't working. But This is just extra incentive now for me to get the new solution built out over the next night or two. So thank you for that. And then Magoo had a $50 tip that came through. Do roids, hit dingers, go to the moon, be American. So incredibly true. That's how I grew up, you know? Steroids, home runs, going to the moon, being American. 90s baseball just defined so much of my early life. Thank you guys. I appreciate your contributions. Let me just update this real quick. I may have to just do all of this manually. Those payments did go through, so I did receive the money. If you want to try them again, you feel free to try them again, of course, but don't feel like you need to. They actually did. I did receive them. They just are not triggering the automation, and I don't know why that is. So I probably have to go through and try to. I need to decide now between spending the time to try to fix the existing thing or just building the new thing. So thank you guys. Appreciate you. I'm curious if someone wants to send something through the like a gifted sub or some kicks or something like that. I'm curious to see if those will. When Pale Morning Dude sent kicks earlier, those did come through the alert. So, yeah, I don't know why the tip link alerts are not working, but they do. They are coming through. So, appreciate you guys who continue to support your streamer. Now, let's keep this going here. This is just a fun little historical anecdote. During the Easter Offensive, an Air Force pilot was shot down over North Vietnam in a densely patrolled area with 30,000 PAVN soldiers. Americans used his photographic memory of golf courses to guide him past minefields over open radio until he could be rescued by Navy SEALs. I think that...
Welcome to the Gulag.
Yes, it does.
If you survive, you earn your freedom.
Thank you, Barnden, for the gifted sub. And, our German brother, Tobias. Appreciate the gifted sub, Barnden. So Hamilton had a much more difficult task to bypass North Vietnamese occupied villages and gun emplacements. His rescuers learned that he was one of the best golfers in the Air Force and that he retained a detailed memory of the golf courses he had played. Improvising a code, they used a series of specific golf course holes to guide him through the minefields and get him to the Miu Jiang River. They radioed him, "You're going to play 18 holes, and you're going to get in the Swanee and make like Esther Williams and Charlie the Tuna. The round starts on number 1 at Tucson National." Hamilton initially replied, "What have you been smoking?" But he broke the code. "It took me a half hour to figure out they were giving me distance and direction," Hamilton explained. "Number 1 at Tucson National is 408 yards running southeast. They wanted me to move southeast 400 yards. The course would lead me to water." This is an incredible story because of the different things required to make this come together. Like, number 1, the dude has to be just an incredible golf course autist. Oh yeah, number 1 at Tucson National is 408 yards running southeast. Not only does he know the yardage for the course, but he also knows the cardinal directions for the course. But then somehow it becomes lore built up in his unit or something like that, and it works its way up the chain of command to where they're like, okay, we need to communicate in code to get him out from behind enemy lines. So what do we know about him that we can use for a code? Oh, he's got a photographic memory for golf courses he's played. Oh, that's perfect. Great. So we'll just give him holes that correspond to distance and direction. And just incredible. Incredible story. Now, before we talk about the specific details of the whole rescue operation, I'll just mention this. On April 1st, from the Washington Post, this was real. This was not an April Fool's joke. Breaking news, the U.S. military gave the president a plan to seize nearly 1,000 pounds of highly enriched uranium in Iran. The mission would require the airlift of potentially hundreds or thousands of troops and could take weeks. Risky commando plan to seize Iran's uranium came at Trump's request. They followed up and said Trump's request for the plan, previously unreported, signals his interest in contemplating what would be an unusually sensitive and high-stakes special operations mission. So WAPO releases this on April 1st. It was something that was requested by Trump. And hours after it leaked, the U.S. Army Chief of Staff was told to resign and retire effective immediately. You can connect the dots. Secretary Pete Hegseth has asked Army Chief of Staff General Randy George to step down and take immediate retirement. Fascinating timing, isn't it? There was a couple of other generals who were also asked to step down. Listening to some of the vet bro commentary, they're pretty convinced that this is acceleration is beginning. Heads are starting to get lopped off. That this is the Iran war thing is kind of a cover for purges to actually start happening under the surface. But in this case, the connection here is very interesting. WAPO suddenly has a source that's reporting that the U.S. military gave the president a plan to a commando raid to go in and seize the highly enriched uranium in Iran. A couple hours later, a general, not just a general, but the U.S. Army Chief of Staff is told to resign and retire. That seems like we can't prosecute you for treason, but we can end your career. Your career is done. So I wonder if this was a canary operation here. You get different information. You give slightly different information to different people and see which one makes it out into the public. But very interesting timing to have this reported. And obviously, if this was the case, you wouldn't necessarily want to signal that this is happening to Iran. And this is, of course, all operating within the idea that kind of just taking the surface narrative for what it is, that this is the U.S. against Iran, military conflict, and that there isn't some sort of kayfabe or whatever to it, which I think there is a substantial amount of that. But, all right, with that backdrop then, this French sort of lib here, Arnaud Bertrand, says, so if I got that right, here's the narrative. This is him being very skeptical of it. But, I mean, this is quite a remarkable story. A U.S. F-15E fighter jet got shot down over Iran, despite Trump saying 2 days beforehand in his nationwide address that Iran has, quote, no anti-aircraft equipment. Their radar is 100% annihilated, end quote. The plane's weapons systems officer, a highly respected colonel, according to Trump, ejected from the plane and got seriously wounded, also according to Trump. He still managed to hike up a 7,000-foot mountain ridgeline and hide in a crevice in the Zagros Mountains, despite his wounds. U.S. MQ-9 Reaper drones started killing all, quote, Iranian military-aged males believed to be a threat who got within 3 kilometers of the Americans' location. To retrieve him, the U.S. managed to seize an abandoned airport 200 miles deep inside Iran, near Isfahan, which happens to be where Iran's largest atomic scientific center is located. That was when I first heard that this stuff was happening in the vicinity of Isfahan. That was when I was like, okay. Yeah, I don't think that this is at least just a rescue mission. There's something else going on here. They landed 2 MC-130 military transport planes in that airport in an operation involving, quote, hundreds of special forces troops and military personnel. Both MC-130 planes got stuck in the sand, and the U.S. destroyed them themselves to prevent them from falling into Iranian hands. They deployed 3 new aircraft to extract all the U.S. personnel on the ground. There are videos circulating online of heavy clashes with presumably Iranian missiles raining down in Kogaluye? What a stupid name. Kogaluye County in the Zagros Mountains during that night. Iran sent pictures of the aftermath at the abandoned airport, and it's a site of utter destruction, with U.S. plane and MH-6 helicopter parts scattered all over the ground, still smoking. Iran claims they are the ones who in fact destroyed all the aircraft. Meanwhile, a second U.S. plane, an A-10 Warthog, also crashed on Friday near the Strait of Hormuz, according to 2 U.S. officials speaking to the New York Times. In that instance, too, the lone pilot was apparently safely rescued. In all this, after the multiple planes and helicopters destroyed or shot down, the documented heavy clashes, the hundreds of special forces troops and military personnel operating deep inside Iran, not a single U.S. soldier was reported killed or even wounded, according to Trump. And the highly respected colonel this was all for? No name, no photo, no interview, nobody has spoken to him nor knows who he is. So to sum up, anti-aircraft equipment that supposedly didn't exist shot down an F-15 and apparently an A-10 Warthog the same day. A seriously wounded man climbed a 2.1-kilometer mountain. The U.S. seized an airfield 200 miles inside a country it's at war with, next to one of its most strategic nuclear sites, and deployed hundreds of troops, all apparently unimpeded. Lost 2 planes to sand and destroyed their own helicopters. Videos show heavy clashes, missiles raining down, but not a single person got even wounded? And the man at the center of it all, nobody knows who he is, completely anonymous, 0 pictures, but Trump says he is safe and sound. And so is the rescued A-10 Warthog pilot, who also remains anonymous. Trump concludes this all proves the U.S. has, quote, achieved overwhelming air dominance and superiority over the Iranian skies, despite the whole episode only happening because Iran shot his planes out of the sky. Basically, the only thing that's overwhelming here is the audacity of the storytelling. Now, I don't think that part of the reason I wanted to read that is because that's not an entirely unfair retelling of the events as they have been reported. This is a pretty good summary of the way the story is sort of like the narrative about the story is setting in. Now, Analytica Camillus here says, quote tweeted that and said, I mean, not really, no. This is a pretty straightforward incident, all things considered. This F-15 was conducting strike operations around Isfahan in preparation for the possibility of a ground team being sent in. They got shot down, like at least 2 MQ-9s before them, probably more honestly, because Iranian air defense crews are still quite active in the area. The 2 air crewmen bailed out, landed, and started their evasion process. On day 1, the pilot was scooped up by PJs and the 2 HH-60 that were dragged in via a C-130 aircraft variant, or C-130 tanker variant, but their HH-60s also drew fire. That wounded the air crew and special forces, so CENTCOM essentially went, well, we're not doing that again. So they told the WSO to hunker down for a bit while they figured out something else to avoid making an incredibly dumb Black Hawk Down remake. One of the damaged HH-60s was filmed in southwest Tehran, so O-centers geolocated it there. But folks inexplicably presumed that the area where the helo was spotted was where the F-15 crashed. CIA didn't bother looking that gift horse in the mouth and started peddling propaganda to the effect that, yeah, the plane landed there, haha, everyone go look for it. In the meanwhile, CENTCOM's planners went back to the drawing board and came up with this new plan, but someone forgot to check the area's soil composition, so when the C-130s landed, one of them got stuck in the apparently soft dirt of this Agra landing strip. That's why I included all of Russia's and Ukraine's Agra strips in the order of battle I did for them, hashtag self-plug. The rescue crew got their MH-60s out and fetched the WSO, while air power dissuaded Basij from checking out the FARP. The C-130 crews realized they couldn't dig the wheel out of the dirt for one of them, and the other one was peppered by mortar fire, so they decided to ditch it and the 4 helicopters they brought in with them. So they brought in one or more Delta demo teams, someone tagged Mike Vining, he's probably glistening with pride right now, aboard 3 lighter transport aircraft that wouldn't get stuck, and they blew all of the stuck aircraft and then dipped out. You follow all that? Now, here's another report. Michael Weiss. Details about the rescue op for the U.S. weapons system officer via a U.S. military official. The mountaintop area on the left is where the WSO was hiding. He ejected 5-ish miles northwest of there. So, this area right up here. I don't know how well you guys can see the image here, but this area right up here, these mountains up on the upper left-hand side. I don't know if you could see my mouse. Come on. Do the get big thing. Come on. There we go. Right up here. So that is where the WSO was hiding. He ejected 5-ish miles northwest of there. The right area is the makeshift landing strip where they landed 2 C-130s and had 4 MH-6 Little Birds. So that was right down here, the lower right-hand side. So you can see there's like a major road here through the middle. This is obviously more mountainous up here to the north and out here to the west. And then there's this big, large, flat plain, which if I put my Randall Carlson hat on, it sure looks like this is the middle of a gigantic river valley, doesn't it? But anyway, so down here is where the C-130s were, and presumably they took the helicopters up here, picked him up, exfilled him out, came back here, and flew out from there. One little bird flew to that mountaintop area and rescued the WSO and brought him back to the landing strip. And of course, the two C-130's nose gears got stuck in the dirt. So after a few hours, they had to bring in 3 AFSOC -8s to fly out the rescued WSO and the 100 or so personnel involved in the op. The op basically cost $300 million because they had to abandon the 2 AFSOC C-130s and the 4 MH-6 Little Birds. Then the U.S. Air Force had to use multiple bombs to blow up all the aircraft they abandoned at that airstrip. And the Iranians shot down 2 MQ-9 Reaper drones. Luckily, the U.S. suffered no casualties, and we had to use multiple bombs and missiles to blow up IRGC vehicles that tried to drive up the mountain, and also those that tried to drive to the airstrip. So there was what do you call it? Like a bounty that was put on his head. And so you have on one hand, you have IRGC people who are trying to get there so that they can capture him and then use him. Because this would have been a massive, if they had been able to actually capture a guy and hold him hostage and then start extracting concessions and stuff, this would have been a huge diplomatic event. Massive black eye for Trump. So there was a huge rush to go try to get to this guy. There's also reportedly people in Iran who are trying to protect him, trying to prevent him from being gotten. Supposedly there's people who are they hate the IRGC, they want the IRGC out, so they're willing to help the Americans or whatever. That's the other contingent of people. Then you had the boys with the fun toys who got an opportunity to go out there and flex their muscles a little bit. Had a grand old time. And, was there anything else here? Yeah, here's the airstrip spot per the same source who says no airfield was built. Just seems like the U.S. military saw a straight line of road of about 3,000 meters and figured it could be a decent place to land C-130s, but then they got stuck and they looked around the area for a farm tractor to potentially pull out the aircraft. It was then that they sent 3 C-295s, not -8s as originally given above. So 3 other transport planes basically that came in and pulled them out. Now, that sounds to me like there's some definite adaptation on the fly. Like something didn't go according to plan. And I don't think that that's people are treating this as if it was either everything was totally under control and there was no problems whatsoever, or it was this massive total clusterfuck catastrophe and the Americans barely escaped with the skin of their teeth. And it's neither one of those things necessarily needs to be the case. This could have been a legitimate rescue operation. You've got 99.5% air dominance, and then they happen to get a guy, they get him down, and the whole thing starts to spiral. But fortunately, you've got just an absolutely insane level of operating capacity on your side that's able to deploy, get in, get out, extract him. Everything's all hunky-dory. That's a completely reasonable read on it. Which is what a lot of people have taken to, which I think is great. This narrative of this, Americans can and will do things the rest of you guys with your silly little pretend countries couldn't even fathom, couldn't even imagine, would never even occur to you to attempt. Yes, this is America. So I'm just fine with the standard narrative because that's a great takeaway to have from this. And that could be in parallel with, this was really close to being a fucking clusterfuck. But, you got to, when you're living on the edge, you take risks. And when you have the mandate of heaven, your extraordinary risks pay off for you. Great. There was one other recap of the events here from this guy. This is the guy that if you've heard Tom Luongo talking about the Indian city of London guy who comes out to craft the narrative every so often, this is the guy he's talking about, Shanaka Anselm Pereira. This is an interesting write-up, and there's a a couple of other points that are included in this. That's why I wanted to read it. He climbed a ridge. That is where the story turns. When the F-15E was hit on Friday morning, both crew members ejected over the mountains of Kogaluya and Boyar Ahmad province in southwestern Iran. The pilot was located first and extracted by HH-60 rescue helicopters within hours under small arms fire that wounded crew aboard the recovery aircraft. The weapons systems officer landed deeper in hostile terrain. He was alone on the ground in a country where state television was broadcasting a bounty for his capture, and besieged militia were flooding the mountain roads below. According to reports now confirmed by Fox News citing 2 senior U.S. officials, the WSO used his SEER training, the survival, evasion, resistance, and escape doctrine drilled into every American combat aircrew. He moved on foot through rugged terrain. He climbed to an elevated ridge near the city of Dedasht. He activated his encrypted emergency beacon and he waited. The beacon was the thread. Everything that followed pulled on it. U.S. Joint Special Operations Command launched a night extraction package. Reports indicate Delta Force operators and pararescuemen from the 24th Special Tactics Squadron inserted via helicopters from the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, the Night Stalkers, the unit that flew the Bin Laden raid. A-10 Warthogs from the 355th Wing provided close air support, running gun passes on IRGC and besieged convoys advancing toward the WSO's position. Imagine, I want this all to be true exactly the way it's told here. Just the movies that could come out of this. Imagine the Warthogs just running the strafing runs back and forth on these convoys. The Night Stalkers inserting in. Bunch of rug merchants out there yelling incomprehensibly, and all of a sudden just dropping, just disappearing. Taken straight to hell. Every single one of those American dudes was just at full mast the whole time. They're going to be telling stories about this for the rest of their lives. Trump's building an entire COD campaign this term. No kidding. Literally a Call of Duty mission. Yeah. HC-130J tankers kept the package airborne. Multiple aircraft were dispatched to establish a temporary fire zone around Dedasht, a no-entry perimeter enforced with precision strikes on a telecommunications tower and approaching vehicles. Iranian local officials reported at least 4 killed and several wounded from the strikes. Then the operation went sideways. According to reports corroborated by Fox News' confirmation that U.S. forces destroyed aircraft which have sensitive equipment, 2 C-130 transports landed at a remote forward arming and refueling point inside Iran to support the extraction. Both became stuck. Rather than allow the aircraft and their classified systems to fall into IRGC hands, American forces destroyed both planes on the ground. The deliberate destruction of 2 U.S. military aircraft inside Iran to deny equipment to the enemy is the detail that separates a clean extraction from an operation that nearly failed before it succeeded. That was kind of the point I was trying to get at here, that the fact that they had to go destroy the aircraft, and that's the story that they're presenting. This is they're vouching for this story. Yes, they went and they destroyed these aircraft. That I don't think that the plan was for the aircraft to get stuck and for them to have to destroy them. But that doesn't take away from this being a monumental success and a great legend of competence for the Americans. This is how the American military operates. We will adapt on the fly. And if need be, we have no problem just obliterating our own shit so you can't get it. We're going to get our guys out. If we get stuck, oh well, there's more where that came from. All these Eurofags that are out here today, like, oh, you destroyed a plane! You destroyed a plane! You shows you losers! It's like, yeah, it doesn't really matter when the aircraft destroyed did not comprise our entire Air Force. There's more where that came from. We'll build more. If anything, they were probably old. Sure, yeah, we have no problem with it. We could just destroy our shit if we need to. Come at us now. You're facing an enemy that will happily go to the ends of the world to rescue a single guy. And they have no problem just shitting all over their own stuff if that's what it means to ensure that they win. What are the lines? Literally the only thing that constrains like U.S. military effectiveness is popular opinion of the president. That's like the greatest constraining variable of all. Additional transports arrived under A-10 cover. The Delta operators and pararescuemen, who were now themselves stranded at the destroyed landing zone, loaded the WSO and extracted under ongoing fire. Fox News reported that the WSO and the members of the rescue team are all safely out of Iran. 0 American casualties. Desert 1 in 1980 ended when a helicopter collided with the C-130 on a remote Iranian airstrip, killing 8 Americans before the mission reached Tehran. 46 years later, C-130s were destroyed on Iranian soil again. This time, the destruction was deliberate. This time, the team got out. This time, the man they came for came with them. The operation confirms 2 truths that cannot be separated. American Special Operations Forces can penetrate, fight inside, and extract from Iran. And the war that was supposed to be over required the most elite soldiers in the U.S. military to fight a ground battle in Iranian mountains to recover 1 man from a country with no air defenses. Both statements are true. The rescue proves American capability. The need for the rescue proves Iranian capability. And the 48-hour countdown is still running. Now, what else did I have here? Oh, yeah, this is an interesting point. Shout out to, I think it was Superior B who posted this in the King Pill Discord. And I threw it in here at the last minute. U.S. Air Force Special Operations Command led an exercise in early May of 2023 called Exercise Agile Chariot. This took place on closed sections of public highways used as temporary runways, specifically on Wyoming Highway 789 west of Riverton in Fremont County near areas like Hudson and the Wind River area. Some related highway operations also happened on Wyoming Highway 287 near Rollins or Casper areas in southern central Wyoming. During this exercise, MC-130Js, which look very similar to C-130s, landed with the little birds inside and were offloaded and reassembled, which was followed up with a combat search and rescue drill with a simulated casualty. The exercise focused on agile combat employment tactics, which enabled the participants training on how to operate from austere, dispersed locations like highways instead of fixed air bases. It involved landing the MC-130J, rapidly deploying the little birds for a simulated combat search and rescue for personnel recovery mission, fast roping, securing the site, and extracting personnel. Wyoming state and local authorities, including the DOT, temporarily closed the highways for safety. And there's some images there from it. Isn't that very interesting? Now, obviously they're landing on an actual highway here, and this strikes me as this isn't like really particularly detailed as if they were specifically planning for exactly this operation. This seems to be more of kind of like a general, like someone's down behind enemy lines. You got to pull together something on the fly and deploy it. So you need to have some institutional, like operational memory for something that's vaguely like this. And it turned out they got something that was very much like that. So I wouldn't say that this is like precise evidence that this was actually an intentionally pre-planned operation that's being covered up as a rescue mission. However, they would already have this capacity in there, so they could treat it as a rescue mission if they needed to. You know, if your goal is we're gonna, so let's take the hypothesis that this was actually an attempt to get at the highly enriched uranium. They had an angle on it, and they were trying to get in there and get it or go destroy it or something like that. Number one, if it failed, then I could imagine why you would just be like, no, this is just a rescue mission. I don't know necessarily why they would need the rescue mission cover for it. Unless what they were doing was sending someone in there to do reconnaissance, and then he's a casualty that they have to go in and extract. Because another thing to consider as well is that the United States military and the military command and all the diplomatic and operational personnel in the orbit of the military are not like one single united entity itself. So there are some operations that there may need to be like some operational siloing, or it has to plausibly apply to two different scenarios at the same time. So you can tell a story that this is the thing we're doing to key decision makers, while withheld from key decision makers is that actually there's this other operation that's happening behind the scenes. Part of this story has been that the CIA undertook a mass distractionary, diversionary effort here where they like spent a while making everyone think that the pilot was actually over here when he was actually over here. And there was like huge distances between them. So they were sowing confusion in and amongst this. There's two possible explanations for that then. Either this is a story about the sheer operational efficiency of the American war machine. And by war, I mean not just the actual, like, boots on the ground, but the entire narrative cover, the diplomatic, the whole thing. That they could adapt on the fly for an emergency situation like this. And it was like all systems go, and it was a massive success for what the situation was. Either that, or the U.S. military's ability to deceive and infiltrate and accomplish missions toward one end while preserving a cover story of something totally different and having everybody just accept it is next level. There is no possible way to conclude from this, however you explain this series of events, you cannot come away concluding anything except don't fuck with America. Right, Straight Buster. Either is good. I'm fine with either one. I think over the next 48, 72 hours, we'll probably get more information that'll kind of confirm what exactly was happening. But I'll also note, you know how people have started noticing this cycle? More and more people are picking up on it. That Trump times statements and events with the weekend to manipulate markets. So you have like the narrative throughout the week, and then usually on Thursday or maybe Friday, Trump will release his new thing that gets everyone talking over the weekend. Then like the initial Iran bombing, Operation Midnight Hammer, the Maduro extraction, all of those things happen over the weekend. And then Monday morning, there's some new thing that takes off. And everyone starts looking somewhere else. The cycle has happened over and over and over again. Usually end of the week, Trump has been like really bellicose toward Iran. And then beginning of the week, he's like, oh, actually, things are pretty good. You know, we might actually get along well. And then, so he's got some big presser announced for tonight. So it'll probably happen before I wake up. But I'm sure tomorrow morning's Labe is going to have some interesting content from that. But I will note that this whole operation occurred over the weekend. It started on Friday and was resolved on Sunday. Now, maybe it just so happens that a U.S. pilot just so happened to get shot down on a Friday so that they could go in and 48 hours later have the whole operation sewn up and donezo before the markets open on Monday. But I'm seeing coincidences. You know, you guys know how I get when I see coincidences. I pay attention. This is the great diplomatic win that all the Eurofags want to capitalize on. That apparently these Iranian operators who got their asses handed to them are exultant that they came away with a pair of boxers. A pair of American Eagle U.S. flag boxers. Sarah Adams said, leaving your American flag AEO boxers behind, $15. Taking an American back from behind enemy lines and terrorist run Iran, priceless. Yeah, indeed, right? And the American Eagle Stars and Stripes stretch boxer shorts are sold out. Because, of course, because this is America. This is what we do. We mog you, and then you're like, oh, we get your undies. And we just go buy them out. Superior B says we left those on purpose, right? Give it a year, says Matt. Thanks for doing the AM labs. As an early riser, I usually can't watch much of the night streams and or get too hyped to go to bed at a reasonable hour and fuck up my body clock. Watching while I work my desk job like this is fucking clutch and very keynote. Patriot, thank you. Give it a year. Thank you for listening. And we're definitely going to stick with the morning labs. I'm enjoying this very much, and I think Amy is as well. Caradwin says, what if the address Trump gave earlier in the week was in preparation for the results of this weekend's op? Yeah, that was another thing. Is like he gave that address and it was kind of like, okay. But he also said there was a couple things he said in that address. One of them was like, we're going to hit them very hard coming soon. So it was sort of like he was saying the war is won. It's over. We've got full air dominance. Also, we're going to be fucking them up very soon. And he also mentioned, I can't remember his exact phrasing, but he said something to the effect of, like, we're now done in the Middle East. Like, we're withdrawn. We're done. And I remember hearing that and be kind of like, And then I watched another clip of it, and it stuck with me more. I was like, that's a very interesting thing to say. That we're now done. Like, mission accomplished. You know, so, like, clearly there's still the intent that we're going to pull out of here. Like, this is part of the process of winding down operations. And I was listening to some Joaquin Flores over the weekend, and he pointed out a couple of very interesting things. First of all, when you note the different targets that Iran has been striking in the GCC, well, first of all, they've continued hammering Israel. Israel is basically at its breaking point. I was just seeing notifications coming in about how Israel's, their domestic airlines are all getting shut down. Like, you can't get flights in or out of Israel, or they're, like, getting more and more constrained. Israel keeps getting hit. Also, Iran hit Dimona. That was another interesting thing that didn't seem to catch many headlines, but Iran hit Dimona. But one of the points that Joaquin was making is, he said, all of the things that Iran has done, all of the things that have happened as a consequence of the U.S. and Israel striking them this time around, were all just totally obvious and predictable. Everyone in there and their mom knew, like, the shutting down of the Strait of Hormuz, the strikes against Israel, all of the things that Iran has done were exactly what everyone told you would happen. And if they shut down the Strait of Hormuz, it's affected the markets exactly as everyone said they would. So there's no, like, you either have to conclude that Trump is just completely and utterly unable to control anything, or the things that Iran has done are actually advancing what Trump wants to happen. And when you think about the coalition that he has to maintain, the coalition he has to work within, particularly NATO, the neocons, Bibi, he has constraints that he has to operate within. Like different agenda items that have to be advanced. Like he has to advance them under the guise of the cause of his unstable coalition partners. Like, what's another thing they've done? They've hit all of these military bases, all these U.S. bases in the region that Trump has been saying, we need to withdraw from here. We need to pull all of our forces out, pull out of the Middle East. Well, what's been happening? All of those bases are getting decimated. So that changes the conversation from, are we going to occupy these bases, to, are we going to rebuild these bases? That's a totally different political animal. Also, just recently, I think it was in the UAE, there was some apartment complex that got hit by Iranian drone strikes. And the apartments that got hit just happened to belong to none other than Zelensky. So how many of these Iran lashing out at its neighbors, just sort of spasmodically just hitting them all, how much of this is actually them targeting very specific targets? Another thing Joaquin Flores mentioned is there's all these data centers, all these development projects by Meta and OpenAI and NVIDIA. Maybe Trump would prefer that those not be happening in the Gulf states. Maybe he actually wants them to happen in Greenland or in the United States. Or so it's like the situation on the ground seems to be advancing the interests that Trump wants. Even if it's not something being done directly by Trump or an ally. The way that Joaquin characterized it is Trump outsourcing some of his foreign policy to Iran. And there's already documentation of the United States and Iran coordinating in the wind down of the 12-day war last summer. Marco Rubio and the his Iranian counterpart explicitly coordinated the resolution of it. Like, okay, you're going to hit our bases over here, so you're going to give us advance notice. We're going to pull our guys out. Then you hit them, and then everything's going to be done. And then remember, Israel, when it did something, and that's when Trump gave the where is it? This one.
They don't know what the fuck they're doing.
That's when Trump was pissed. He was like, we negotiated an end to this. There was going to be no more. Then Israel lashed out again. So we've got a record of Trump, the Trump administration and Iranian leadership coordinating, we're going to strike this now, then you strike that. That's already on the record. They already do that. So is this the whole thing about like the data centers and stuff, like, are there, he was like, so now I got to look at like what's being said between Trump and Sam Altman. What's happening between Trump and Bill Gates? Microsoft has some big development projects down there. These are the sorts of angles that ought to yield some kind of interesting. If you start digging into them and figure out what's happening here, I think that's an interesting line of questioning to go down. To what extent are the Iranians and the Trump administration actually coordinating on all this? And I've suspected for a while that there's some level of, there's factions or something within Iran. Either that, it doesn't even have to necessarily be coordinated. It can just be, well, we know that Iran is going to strike these bases if we kick shit off with them. And if those bases get struck, it's going to make it way harder to rebuild them. And then there's the downstream effects on NATO. Obviously, this is driving the relationship with NATO to a head. And Trump has just gained a tremendous amount of leverage over them with this whole situation, which ties directly into Ukraine and Russia. And this is all a buildup for some sort of like rapprochement with China. So let's talk a little bit about the America's allies, our European brethren. James E. Thorne here, Dr. J Strategy. He tweeted this long post, and he got some very interesting signal boosts on it. Ted Cruz retweeted it. Britt Hume retweeted it. A bunch of people I follow and respect retweeted it. So he says, food for thought. Trump, Hormuz, and the end of the free ride. For half a century, Western strategists have known that the Strait of Hormuz is the acute point where energy, sea power, and political will intersect. That knowledge is not in dispute. What is new in this war with Iran is that the United States under Donald Trump has chosen not to rush to solve the problems. In Hegelian terms, he's refusing an easy synthesis in order to force the underlying contradiction to the surface. Now, it's funny. You have like, I've noticed that with Hegel, you have like actual Hegelian philosophy, then you have like pop Hegelian philosophy, and the pop Hegelian philosophy has some merit to it as well, but the actual like Hegel fanboys absolutely fucking blow their shit every single time somebody invokes the like pop Hegel, the thesis, synthesis, antithesis sort of thing. So it was funny watching all of the Hegel spurgs go nuts over this tweet. So the old thesis was simple. The U.S. guarantees open sea lanes in the Gulf, and everyone else structures their economies and politics around that free insurance. Europe and the UK embraced ambitious green policies, ran down hard power capabilities, and lectured Washington on multilateral virtue, secure in the assumption that American carriers would always appear off Hormuz. The political class behaved as if the American security guarantee were a law of nature, not a contingent choice. Their conduct today is closer to Chamberlain than Churchill, temporizing, issuing statements, hoping the storm will pass without a fundamental reordering of their responsibilities. Trump's antithesis or antithesis is to withhold the automatic guarantee at the moment of maximum stress. Militarily, the U.S. can break Iran's residual ability to contest the strait. That is not the binding constraint. The point is to delay that act. By allowing a closure or semi-closure to bite, Trump ensures that the immediate pain is concentrated in exactly the jurisdictions that have the most conspicuously free-ridden on U.S. power: the EU and the UK. Their industries, consumers, and energy transition assumptions are exposed. In that context, his reported blunt message to European and British leaders, "You need the oil out of the strait more than we do, why don't you go and take it?" is not a throwaway line. It is the verbalization of the antithesis. It openly reverses the traditional presumption that America will carry the burden while its allies emote from the sidelines. In this dialectic, the prize is not simply the reopening of a choke point. The prize is a reordered system in which the United States effectively arbitrages and controls the global flow of oil. A world in which U.S.-aligned production in the Americas, plus a discretionary capability to secure or not secure Hormuz, places Washington at the center of the hydrocarbon chessboard. For that strategic end, a rapid restoration of the old status quo would be counterproductive. So you notice the consequence, talking about how everything Iran has done is totally and completely predictable. And it just so happens that all these different consequences are working out really well for the United States, barring the panicans on the internet freaking the fuck out. Except for that, the United States is actually benefiting pretty significantly from this, both in immediate economic terms, but also in the power of the United States being able to fully control the global supply of oil. Whether that's in being a major exporter ourselves, being able to use that in trade negotiations, or in being able to effectively hold the Strait of Hormuz hostage, where we're the one power who could theoretically open it by force. And so if any of the rest of you want it open by force, you can either go do it yourselves, or you can pay us to do it. But then that begs the question is it being closed by force? If the United States could open it by force, and they're choosing not to, then ostensibly we're building up to a point where they do go and close and open it up by force. But the United States benefits in terms of oil prices by it being closed. But you know who else benefits? Iran benefits. Iran is benefiting tremendously from this because suddenly they're making a fucking killing selling the same oil that they were selling before. Saudi Arabia is selling less oil and making more money with the strait in its current state. So the whole idea that Trump has gotten in over his head and the situation's out of his control and he's panicking and desperate and blustering, maybe it might make sense on the surface, but if you start looking at who's benefiting from the current status quo, I think it becomes very clear that the current status quo is the status quo for a reason. So all of his open the strait is pretty obviously theater towards something. A quick surgical fix of Hormuz would short-circuit the dialectic. If Trump rapidly crushed Iran's remaining coastal capabilities, swept the mines, and escorted tankers back through the strait, Europe and the UK would heave a sigh of relief and return to business as usual. Underfunded militaries, maximalist green posturing, and performative disdain for U.S. power, all underwritten by that same power. The contradiction between their dependence and their posture would remain latent. One other thing to add, too, is that the other side that is benefiting significantly from the current state of things is Russia. Because now, suddenly, it's gotten extraordinarily more expensive for Ukraine to prosecute their war effort. Yet another front in which the Eurozone is getting hemmed in. Thanks for dropping in, Howie. Good to see you, man. Just a reminder, you can go to tips.kingpill.com and tip your streamer. We're at 250. We got 150 to go to hit the goal for today and do a random drawing where someone who signed up at forum.kingpill.com could win 10% of the total take. Someone will win. If we get to that $400 mark, then someone will win. It seems as if the automation maybe isn't working. So if you send something, just let me know. I'm trying to check periodically. And also you can go to, if it's just not working and there's no possibility of getting the alerts to come through today, then you could also just go to Cash App or Venmo and just use that Kingpilled. Just let me know and I'll give you a shout out. By declining to supply the synthesis on demand and by explicitly telling London and Brussels to go and take it themselves, Trump forces a reckoning. European and British leaders must confront the fact that their energy systems, their industrial bases, and their geopolitical sermons all rest on an American hard power foundation they neither finance nor politically respect. The longer the contradiction is allowed to unfold, the stronger the eventual synthesis can be. A new order, in which access to secure flows, Hormuz, Venezuela, and beyond, is explicitly conditional on real contributions, not assumed as a right. And would that not be perfectly in alignment with the Trump administration's national security strategy and national defense strategy as published last year? A new order in which access to secure flows is explicitly conditional on real contributions. No more free riding. If you want to be part of the American system, you are going to give something up to benefit from it. In that sense, the delay in taking the strait and the challenge issued to U.S. allies to do it themselves is not indecision. It is the negative moment Hegel insisted was necessary for history to move. Only by withholding the old guarantee and by saying so out loud to those who depended on it can Trump hope to end the free ride. So it's already at 4 million views, and check out some of the quote tweets in here, just sorted by top quote tweets. You've got Britt Hume, Colonel Watkins. She says, the only point I'd add, the entire pyramid was built on the U.S. taxpayers. Our wealth stolen and used for financial gains. Lloyd's of London charged premiums based on U.S. naval power to secure shipping. Those profits generated didn't return to the U.S. taxpayer. They were pocketed by a global elite. The entire world order was paid for using our stolen wealth. The destabilization and plundering of countries were funded by intelligence fronts like USAID and NED, again with our taxpayer dollars in order for Western companies to exploit labor and resources. Those profits were pocketed by the elite, and we were left with the debt of financing those projects. Their global empire is being disassembled, and I, for one, am happy to see it smashed into 1,000 pieces. Ted Cruz, Tedwardo Cruzberg says, fascinating. Ari Fleischer, very well said, smart take. Wings over Scotland, I'm tired telling people Trump isn't a moron. His Moron Act is designed with extraordinary success to enrage his opponents, who are idiots, into such spluttering fury that they take leave of all their senses and remain easy to defeat. That's why he's president. So true. Mark Levin says real good for thought. Food for thought. Oh yeah, Hegelsberg is mad. Laura Logan. Another Hegelsberg, very angry. John Conrad, that's where I saw it. He says, my earlier Hormuz hypothesis mapped out through Hegelian dialectic is starting to look a lot less theoretical. Okay, so now here is a very interesting article from The Telegraph. The Telegraph being rather honest here. Tom Tugendhat says Britain couldn't have pulled off this Iran rescue. The American airmen will have had to display huge courage, but he would have known the most powerful military in the world was with him. The first few hours on the run are exhilarating. Everything seems to happen at once. The noise and the danger are so present that the drills kick in, and for a while, time seems to slow down. Later, as the adrenaline wears off, exhaustion and fear take over. That's when resilience and courage are needed. Alone, without a team, the US F-15 airmen who crashed in Iran would have needed every ounce of his training and strength to continue to hide, move, communicate, and pray for rescue. He wasn't on the run for a night with his team, as I was 20 years ago, but for 2 days with no one. That's tough. Though the details are sparse, what is becoming clear is that the U.S. Combat Search and Rescue Team have achieved a remarkable success. Across hostile ground, with a local population aware of the prize within their grasp, and with capable units tracking and searching for him, the airman was brought out. That speaks to a military team of huge power and resourcefulness. There's no other nation that could have done it. 50 years ago, even the U.S. wouldn't have been able to do it. One of the defining moments in recent Iranian-U.S. relations was the attempted rescue of the so-called Iran hostages. In those first days after the 1979 Islamic Revolution, it wasn't clear that the regime would be so hostile to Washington. The cries of death to America were yet to be heard on every street. Many in the Iranian military, which had switched allegiance from the Shah to the Ayatollah, had trained alongside U.S. troops or at U.S. bases. The first attack on the U.S. Embassy that February by a Marxist guerrilla group was condemned. After storming the mission, capturing a Marine, and threatening to kill the ambassador, the Iranian government helped retake the compound and restore U.S. control. In September, another communist group tried again, but the Islamic regime restored order. That's what made the kidnapping of the 66 American men and women working at the U.S. Embassy in November so surprising. This time, the assailants weren't Leninist atheists, but Khomeini-supporting students who had not been stopped. What followed was Operation Eagle Claw, the catastrophic failed rescue attempt that left 8 American rescuers dead and ushered in the end of Jimmy Carter's presidency, the election of Ronald Reagan, the creation of the Special Operations Command, and the beginning of 4 decades of hostilities between Tehran and Washington. It also saw a young Donald Trump saying in an interview that this country sits back and allows a country such as Iran to hold our hostages, to my way of thinking, is a horror. He's been holding on to that for a long time. With a history like that, in hunting for the missing airmen, Iran's forces were looking for a prize to remind the U.S. of the price of failure. While Americans were desperate not just to find their comrade, but also to ensure they could avoid a repetition of Iran's capture of British Royal Navy personnel in 2004 and again in 2007. Excuse me. No one was in any doubt that the stakes were as high as they could be from the moment the airmen ejected. Every element of the U.S. military machine would have been devoted to his recovery. The U.S. has always seen the protection of its own forces as a key moral element of its fighting capability. Since the Second World War, pilots and special forces operators have been issued with silk maps that can be folded up and sewn into uniforms, and gold coins that can be taped to belts or hidden in boots to help them orientate themselves and bribe their way out of trouble. No doubt this airman had them too. Maps were not only good for directions, they contained words written in all the languages that were likely to be useful, including requests for help and promises of reward. And the maps themselves would have had their own value. Some armies promised their troops that should the serial number on the map be matched with a name, it can be turned into thousands of dollars at any embassy in the world. Again, a way of making it easier for them to hide or escape. But the key is to remain hidden. In the desert, where few people are around and any outsider would be noticed, that's not easy. After 24 hours, he would have been looking for water, not food. And while it would have been too cold, he would have needed to hide from watchful eyes. Still, technology would have made that easier. The airman would almost certainly have been carrying a personnel recovery device capable of sending encrypted bursts to satellites overhead, allowing rescue teams to track his position without him needing to break cover or risk a voice transmission. And drones would have been redirected to watch over him, marking threats and mapping routes in the area. When the opportunity finally came, the Combat Search and Rescue Team, which was likely to be a mix of Air Force pararescuemen and Special Operations helicopters who had rehearsed this scenario hundreds of times, would have been sent in. That's why this succeeded while Operation Eagle Claw failed. In 1980, the teams hadn't trained together, the helicopters broke down. Most fundamentally of all, the command chain was confused, leading to conflicting assumptions and orders. The disaster at their forward base, Desert 1, was a system failure that the U.S. military has corrected. This rescue is proof that the years of integration and leadership that SOCOM offers have prepared the American military better than any other. That deep understanding of joint operations and relentless rehearsals has made U.S. Special Operations the most capable in the world. Losing a C-130 in a helicopter won't matter so long as everyone is brought home. For Britain, there is a harder lesson. We couldn't have done it. We do not have the platforms, the satellites, the reach, or the mass. Our rescue plan, if the airmen were British, would be to call the U.S. Our only choice would have been reaching out to Washington or capitulating to Tehran. The Americans got their man out because they decided decades ago that they would never accept the alternative. That's given them a power that demands respect. Britain once had it. Like America, we could decide to have it again. That was the Right Honorable Tom Tugendhat, MP, a former security minister, served in Afghanistan and Iraq. And here's the thing. The exact facts of the matter on this, the actual events as they played out objectively, were you able to string that together? Don't matter all that much. I mean, maybe we get some story later on that kind of colors this in retrospect, but the really big takeaway here is that this makes the U.S. military look fucking fearsome. And it's yet another indicator that we have that we're in a new age of military combat, particularly with the United States, that's much more special operations focused. It's a lot more about infiltration, quick strikes, overwhelming air power. Where a ground invasion is not. That's an old model of warfare. Now with drones, aircraft, stealth fighters, and the ability to generate mass propaganda digitally and manipulate social media networks and scramble and confuse all these sorts of things. And that's not even getting into the stuff like the discombobulator and everything. The United States is uniquely capable of enforcing its will in this sort of way. That doesn't mean the United States can just go head on to war with China or Russia or whatever, that would be desirable or necessary or anything like that. It's just that the United States military is uniquely capable in a way that nobody else comes close to. Superior B says, do more with less. We maintain our large forces to really fuck you up if you so decide for that to happen. And Josh Ham says, additionally, special operations is exponentially cheaper than logistics trains for armies overseas. No kidding. Right. It's much more agile. Much more agile, much more cost-effective. So imagine when you take the amount of funding that has been directed toward this old, much more expensive form of military engagement, and you now deploy that toward this much more surgical, focused, tight sort of operation. Imagine the potential leaps and bounds ahead that surgical operation could get on that basis. Give it a year said the only thing that can get in our way is our collective retardation thanks to glowy ops and progressive and foreign agitators. As Matt said earlier, the only real check on the military's ability to wage war effectively and push our power around is the president's approval rating or popularity of the war domestically. Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. Give it a year also says, I'd also argue that spec ops are likely more demoralizing and make for better propaganda for us. No kidding. So true. So true. Now, there's another thing that I just remembered I was going to mention earlier that Joaquin Flores was mentioning. He said, if you look at a parallel between the Venezuela operation and Iran, as you begin to recognize, like, this is a new sort of military doctrine that's paired with diplomacy and trade in such a way as kind of a uniquely Trumpian, like multifactorial foreign policy. In Venezuela, we're not going to go in and we're not going to do like a full ground up like installation of democracy and all that. We're going to work with whatever you have there on the ground. We're going to remove the troublesome factors and then we're going to work with whatever remains. And it seems to be working well in Venezuela, and there's kind of a clear idea of why that would work out. If you think about if you parallel that with Iran, then what you can expect is going to ultimately happen in Iran is the IRGC is going to remain in power. The mullahs are going to remain in power. The existing power structure is going to stay there by and large, but it's going to be oriented in a pro-America direction. That would be the win condition. It's not like remove them and install something completely different. There's all the stuff with like the Shah's son. That's going as far as the Marina Machado thing did in Venezuela. That's the old system. That's what they want to do. They want to do just a whole comprehensive regime change where you uninstall one form of government and install a whole new one. So when Trump says we're not doing a regime change, that's what he's talking about. We're not going to do these like insurgencies, these occupations, these long nation building stuff. No, we're going to work with whoever's there in power. Whoever can retain power, we don't care. Same thing in North Korea. Trump went and did some blustering back and forth with him and then went and had a great diplomatic event, and North Korea has just kind of continued as they have been, but they're not a problem anymore. So there's a pattern here with the way that Trump conducts negotiations and diplomacy. And when he does regime change, it's really about leaving the existing regime in place, but let's say redirecting their priorities, redirecting their obligations. Of course, the hopelessly Eurofagged cannot comprehend this. Daniel Foubert, is this French? Polish oligarch, imperialist, and supremacist half the time. French philosopher the other half. Professionally, a geoeconomist. A French-Polish geoeconomist. He says, lose all this to rescue one pilot and call it your greatest military success of all time. And Lee, who's been just mogging on the timeline, one of our great Patriot posters, says, I'm noticing a lot of foreigners who seem to not understand why we'd risk hundreds of lives, spend millions of dollars, and sacrifice several aircraft to rescue one guy. And the reason they don't understand is also the reason people can't be made American by a piece of paper. Talk about a nuke. This is the sort of nuclear proliferation I want to see. 3.8 million views. Look at our boy. Look at our boy making it big time yet again by mogging a Eurofag on the timeline. John Conrad says, quoting this thread I'm about to read you, the USA is finally saying enough. I am here, I can tell you what the vibe is, and that's it. Trump is doing what people want in this regard. They're over it. John Conrad says, I live in the most liberal, most pro-Europe state, and even many of my friends who hate Trump are over it. And I'm pretty sure, I think he lives in Massachusetts, if I'm not mistaken. Does he say here? I'm pretty sure he said before. He's somewhere in the Northeast up there. So Tom Kratman here says, from Martin Isles, reposted. Having lived in the U.S. for nearly 2 years, I've realized something. The USA and the remainder of the Western world are no longer aligned. We all laugh and mock when the Americans say freedom because we truly think we're as free as they are. Wrong. We're not. Not even close. The laws, the mindset, and the behavior is totally different in this regard. Most of all, the governments are totally different. The USA's convictions around core freedoms are on a scale we do not share. Meanwhile, Donald Trump wins the popular vote, the Electoral College, the House, and the Senate. A man who, in every other Western country, is held in open derision, if not contempt. For these and other reasons, we are not the same. Yet the West, including Australia, fully expect to rely on the USA for our very survival. If the world turns bad, which will happen, only a question of time, then the whole West without America is toast. So you may ask, if we're not very aligned ideologically, then it must be that we bring something to the party militarily? Well, no, actually. We don't matter that much militarily. The USA has about 470 ships in its navy, including 11 aircraft carriers, 69 submarines, 75 destroyers, plus 110 new ships in the pipeline. Australia has about 30, including 3 destroyers, 7 frigates, and 7 outdated submarines. The UK does a little better with about 60. Meanwhile, the US has over 14,000 military aircraft, a staggering number. Australia has 252 military aircraft. The UK has 556. The US Army has just shy of 1 million uniformed personnel in its military. Australia has about 45,000. The USA spends 3.4% or $968 billion of its GDP on defense. Australia spends 2%, $36.4 billion. The US spends as much as the next 15 largest military spending countries, including China, combined. The USA has a fighting culture. The men shoot things a lot and hunt things. The veterans get favored in everything from parking spots to boarding planes. A uniformed young man is thanked in the street a dozen times a day. Oh, the Americans and their guns, we say in our smug way. Yes, they have a warrior culture. We do not. We don't have to because we're a leech on theirs. How many young British men are willing to fight for their country? Now ask the same regarding young American men. The difference is about as wide as it could be. Militarily, we don't offer squat. Meanwhile, look at the way Australia works against America's interests by loving on China. China made us rich and we stay close. This is a Marxist regime with expansionist aims. Again, you have to spend time in the USA to realize just how vast a gulf there is between us and on China. Europe too. They let China have their way everywhere from Germany to Greenland, all the while importing Islam and sending their own people to court for saying hurdy words. Somehow we have landed the deal of a lifetime with the USA that says, when the baddies come, you'll save us, okay? Because we can't save ourselves. And we live in peace. But we keep gnawing away at freedoms, keep enabling China, and get flabby and disinterested about our military because Uncle Sam's got it. And let's be honest, Americans are widely looked down on. To add insult to injury, we don't think that highly of our protectors. So the USA is finally saying, enough. I am here, I can tell you what the vibe is, and that's it. Trump is doing what people want in this regard. They're over it. And we come across all shocked and hard done by. We behave like people with no self-insight at all. Yes, the global alliance system is all over the place now. From America's perspective, it's about time. And I must say, though I be a proud Australian, I am forced to agree. Something has to change. Look at my Rue American. Honorary American. Might even consider him a patriot. That's the highest compliment that you can get. Because patriotism is inherently American. So if we call you a patriot, we are bestowing honorary Americanness upon you. Let me catch up on the comments here. Well below average says, sadly, some of these countries once had a warrior ethos. That's true. That's true. We will reignite it in them. We are gracious and magnanimous after all. Straight Buster says losing a plane or two would be devastating to their raggedy ass fleets. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Aussies tend to get us a lot better than Euros. That's true, Kate. There's some I think it has something to do with the territory, the terrain that the Aussies live in. They're forced to be, generally speaking, they're kind of forced to interface with reality a little more. So they have more of that, they have this big, massive land mass that's covered with all sorts of life-threatening things that they've made peace with and that they just live around. So they kind of have, give it a year. They kind of share our frontier spirit. Yeah. Josh Ham says the only way Euros and global Anglos will reconquer their destinies is if America cuts the apron strings. Baby bird has to fly. Yes, so true. So American Debunk here says Trump is currently on an all-time persuasion run. I posted about this yesterday morning on X, and I want to go deeper here because it's one of the most sophisticated persuasion sequences I've seen Trump run. Trump has been using the word take in all caps repeatedly in connection with Iranian oil and all things Iran. And it's easy to miss what he's actually doing with it. He even used the word 9 times in his primetime speech. He's not just describing a policy option, he's conditioning you to see Iranian oil as something that can be picked up off the floor. Free money. Here's the sequence he's running. So 3 days ago, Trump said, with a little more time, we can easily open the Hormuz Strait, take the oil, and make a fortune. It would be a gusher for the world. One of the most boomer posts I've ever seen. With the question marks. It would be a gusher for the world. I definitely did not have on my my bingo chart the president tweeting about gushers. The Take campaign. First, he told 90 million Iranians to take control of their government back. That plants the idea that something in Iran is there for the taking. Then he told the UK to take the oil from Iran. He told other nations the same thing. Nobody stepped up, and maybe that's the point. Trump is walking around the room picking money off the floor saying, does this belong to anyone? No? Okay. He waits, nobody moves, then he just puts it in his pocket. People are going to soon realize they could have and should have picked up that money. Trump couldn't have said 6 weeks ago, I want Iran's oil. The public wasn't ready for it. First, he had to establish that the military objectives were already met, that somebody else needs to come in and clean up the oil and economic mess. Then he had to introduce the idea that Iranian oil was somehow available, unclaimed, waiting. He did that by asking other people to take it first. So people will go and show all these other nations that are all striking these deals with Iran and shipping oil through the strait. And they're like, oh, see, Trump, they're just doing it behind his back. And he's like, no, this is the new normal. Yeah, whoever wants to, go on in. Go negotiate. Go sort something. Go get the oil. You go do it yourself. You pick it up. What, you don't want to? You want us to do it? Oh, but wait a second. I thought that you're all like rich and powerful and independent and you don't need America at all. So the more the other nations like the Southeast Asian nations or any of the other like mid-tier, lower mid-tier nations that go in and just work out something directly with Iran. Malaysia is one of them. Any of those nations that go work something out. This isn't like evidence of Trump not having control of the situation. He's setting up the situation exactly so that it could be this way. So he had to introduce the idea Iranian oil was somehow available, unclaimed, and waiting. He did that by asking other people to take it first. When they didn't, when the UK demurred, when other nations didn't step up, Trump didn't force it. He just kept saying the word, take, take, take. Each repetition makes the idea more normal, less radical, more like a real estate transaction than an act of war. The art of the deal. This is what I'm calling the take campaign. A systematic conditioning effort to reframe the seizure of Iranian oil from conquest to deal, from aggression to opportunity, from theft to salvage. He did it so smoothly, and it worked. Glenn Greenwald posted yesterday to 1.7 million followers that the liberation narrative disappeared and now it's all about stealing their oil. He's calling it out as hypocrisy. I'd argue he's half right. The liberation framing was always designed to expire. It served its purpose. It gave the military campaign moral cover while the actual objectives, the strait, the oil leverage over China, got secured. Now that phase is over. Trump doesn't need the liberation frame anymore, so he dropped it. That's not hypocrisy. What a sequence. Greenwald spotted the shift. He just has the wrong explanation for it. When you begin to realize this take campaign is happening, you can appreciate Trump as one of the greatest persuaders of all time and allow that filter to help you make sense of all he does on the public stage. The Congress problem. One more persuasion angle worth flagging this morning since you're here. Yesterday, Trump said he doesn't need Congress to pull the U.S. out of NATO. I don't need Congress for that decision, he said. Community Notes on X quickly pointed out that he's wrong. Section 1250A of the 2024 NDAA requires 2/3 Senate approval. But watch what that statement is doing underneath. Trump is building a pattern of claiming executive unilateralism on major foreign policy moves. He said it about NATO, he's implied it about Iran, and at some point, someone's going to ask, does Trump need Congress to take Iranian oil? The legal answer is almost certainly yes. Seizing the sovereign assets of a foreign nation, even one you're at war with, requires legislative authorization. Iraq's oil fields never became American oil fields. Libya's didn't either. But Trump is preloading the I don't need Congress frame before the question gets asked loudly. If he can normalize the idea that these are executive calls, the legal objection lands softer when it arrives. This is anchoring. Set the extreme claim first. Let people fight about it. Then the more moderate version, a deal that gives the U.S. commercial access to Iranian oil through a negotiated framework, doesn't seem radical at all by comparison. You wanted to take the oil? Fine. Here's a 40-year lease structure instead. Sounds reasonable. Deal done. Note, whether the United States benefits financially from this oil crisis is to be determined. We'll see. Here's the quote from my president.
Are you rethinking the United States' relationship with NATO possibly getting out?
Well, I'm disappointed in NATO that we spend trillions of dollars on NATO. Think of it, trillions over the years, many trillions of dollars. It's one of the reasons we have deficits and we help other countries. And when they don't help us, I mean, it's certainly something that we should think about. I don't need Congress for that decision. As you probably know, I can make that decision myself. I'd work with some very smart people. And I'd always deal with Congress anyway, but I don't need Congress for that decision. But, you know, when you say rethink, I have nothing currently in mind, but I will say that I'm not exactly thrilled when we help them with Ukraine. Look, Ukraine would have been over in one day if we didn't help. Frankly, Ukraine would have been over in the first day. They had the best equipment in the world. It was our equipment.
So, Josh Ham says, yeah, but Trump isn't going to seize the oil. Iran is going to give us the oil with the money going to Treasury and not through Congress. Right. I think the ultimate resolution of this is going to be effectively a trade deal signed with Iran. Just like tariffs aren't going through Congress, Trump can use the slush fund however he sees fit. Exactly. Straight Buster says, we have a president that is skeptical of our relationship with NATO. When was the last time that happened? Yeah, it's easy to lose sight of these things. He's not just laying the groundwork for let's just say like a complete reimagining of our relationship with NATO. Whether it's withdrawal or changing the structure of it or whatever, some sort of concession, some sort of change of the status quo. That also has major implications on Ukraine and Russia. So, in a sense, this operation with Iran is actually driving resolution to the Ukraine-Russia matter. So watch for the word take. Every time Trump uses it between now and Monday, he's A/B testing the response. When nobody pushes back, the window opens a little wider. He's going to continue using it for weeks to come. Now, we were so innocent once. Trump Easter message 2015. I wish everyone, including the haters and losers, a very happy Easter. One of the all-timers, and I'd completely forgotten that this was the Easter, it was an Easter tweet from him. The haters and losers. What was the other one? He said they can't help the fact that they were born fucked up. I love all of my critics, or the haters and the losers. They can't help the fact they were born fucked up. Well, we have a new Easter message from our president. Posted yesterday morning. Tuesday will be Power Plant Day and Bridge Day, all wrapped up in one in Iran. There will be nothing like it. Open the fucking straight, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch. Praise be to Allah. President Donald J. Trump. I could not believe this was... I had to go screenshot this myself just to confirm to me that it was real. Just remarkable. Open the fucking straight, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch. Praise be to Allah. Put this right up there with Mr. Gorbachev. Tear down this wall. A day which will live in infamy. Incredible. He's doing his crazy man act. I love it. I love it when the president does his crazy man act. Josh Ham says, I was shocked how many people didn't understand that Trump was stunting on these hoes. These people think Trump is actually praising Allah. They're so mind-rotted. They've been turned into slobbering retards. How is it not obvious that this is exactly what he's doing? Dinesh D'Souza, of all people, says this post includes several figures of speech, including metonymy, I think that's how you pronounce it, metonymy, hyperbole, metaphor, and irony. A little gem that is written to mystify the intellectually impoverished. Intellectually impoverished is such a line. You guys are getting mogged by Dinesh D'Souza for crying out loud. Now, I was trying to remember what this word was the other day. Metonymy was actually something I knew that there was this particular concept, and I was trying to remember what it was, because when we talk about the British, and I've talked about how when I say the British, I'm trying to be particular and make sure it's clear that I'm not necessarily talking about the British people per se. I'm talking about it's like a stand-in term for that the globalist, multinational, supranational institutions that are derivative of the British Empire. That's what it is. It's a metonym. That's exactly it. Slutty Milk. The British, in this context, should be understood as a metonym. Kind of like using K Street to refer to the lobbyist industry. Or the Hill to refer to Congress. So you'd say the Hill. You're not talking about the Hill itself. The Hill is like a term that refers to that group. So the British, in this context, is a metonym for the globalist, Atlanticist, Club of Rome, the Fabians, these emergent constructs of the British imperial system. And this guy, the Dem Slayer, look at this. Here's a bio for you. Jesus saves, mashed together so that you have USA in the middle of it. MAGA, slaying demons on the left and right, communists and Nazis. Islam is evil and Allah is Satan. I stand with Israel, Christian Zionist. When a guy's got a good tweet, I got to give it to him. Even if I feel like I need to scrub my eyeballs with vinegar after reading his bio. Jake Hilton says, exactly, and when President Trump says, praise be to Allah, he's doing something very similar to what the prophet Elijah did on Mount Carmel with the prophets of Baal. He's basically saying, call on your God all you want. He will not be there to save you from the fire and brimstone I'm about to rain down on you. That is a fantastic observation, a fantastic comparison. What the prophet Elijah did to the prophets of Baal was, go read that story. If you're not familiar with, even if you are familiar with it, you haven't read it in a while, go read it again. Because he's like, they're like dancing around, cutting themselves, flipping out. And he's just like, oh. I don't know, maybe he went to the bathroom. Have you tried checking to see if he went to the bathroom? Maybe he's taking a nap. Maybe you just got to yell louder. Try to wake him up. You know, your gods, I know they're not listening to you, but you know, maybe he's taking a shit or something. Give that a try. And they exhaust themselves, bleed themselves dry, and they're like, okay, they didn't accept our sacrifice. And he's like, all right, God, lightning from heaven, everything consumed, all the water burned up. And then the prophet Elijah proceeded to rally all the people together, grab all of those prophets of Baal, and murder them. That is Saint Elijah. One of the coolest stories in the Bible. Yeah, then he told him to make his wood wet, and he still set it on fire. Right. Frank McCormick says, Trump is out of control. Relax. He once called Kim Jong-un fat and threatened to nuke him, and a few weeks later had lunch with him. I'd forgotten about this one, so I had to include it. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un just stated that the nuclear button is on his desk at all times. Will someone from his depleted and food-starved regime please inform him that I too have a nuclear button, but it is a much bigger and more powerful one than his, and my button works! I hope you guys appreciate just how much of a blessing it is that we get to live in the time of Donald John Trump. A gentleman called Donald John Trump. Have you heard of him? Sex Haver, thank you for the Kenny Powers. It was Kenny Powers who sent the tip in. $7.77 takes us to $257.77. He says, God damn it, this show is a fucking patriot. No, sir, you, Kenny Powers, you are a patriot. Mom's Burryman says, you realize watching Trump why crime procedurals, medical dramas, westerns, and soap operas could have the same plot week after week, and yet people would keep tuning in. Yeah, very, very true. So, from Zero Hedge here, major U.S. shale producer to boost output, and it suggests one thing. Seth Levy says, because it's now profitable to do so. Imagine that. Let's see what this says here. And then we're going to get a little bit of my Doyum brethren. We're going to have a little John Tent after this. So stay tuned for that. Major U.S. shale producer to boost output, and it suggests one thing, by Tyler Durden. Last month, roughly 3 weeks into the U.S.-Iran conflict, UBS chief economist Aaron Captain told clients that one reason this Middle East energy shock is not like the 2011 to 2014 shale boom is the lack of a comparable response from the U.S. shale patch. In other words, the oil shock was viewed as temporary by major shale players and not worth adding new drilling rigs to the mix. But now, on day 35 of Operation Epic Fury, that assumption about a less responsive U.S. shale patch, in the face of soaring energy prices, looks increasingly stale. President Trump's remarks earlier this week were viewed by some analysts as less of a de-escalation. Trump said, "We are going to hit them extremely hard. Over the next 2 to 3 weeks, we're going to bring them back to the Stone Age." Since Captain's mid-March note, Wall Street has also started to reprice the duration of the energy shock. Goldman last week raised its 2026 Brent forecast to $80 a barrel, while Reuters polling shows much of the street expects crude to be over $82 this year, up from the low 60s earlier this year, reflecting that the Hormuz choke point won't fade quickly. So it's obviously higher than that right now, but it's spiked, and they're expecting that it's going to start coming back down, but they're adjusting their expectations for how much farther down it's actually going to go. And if you were a loyal and faithful Luangooner, you know that Tom has been hammering away at this all of last year, while the yen carry trade is getting unwound, while the financialization markets in gold and silver were being heavily attacked. The LBMA is being drained of gold. Silver and gold prices are spiking. He was saying, if I was going through and trying to destroy the manipulation capability of all these financialization contracts, the next one on my list would be the Brent crude contract. And what do you know? Suddenly, that's the dominant thing now. It's almost like Tom has a palantir. Context here matters because the energy mess in the Gulf is no longer being treated as a temporary shock, and shale can no longer afford to ignore it. The longer Hormuz remains disrupted, and the more Trump signals a prolonged military campaign, the greater the odds of a response from America's shale complex. What's that? You're telling me that Trump came in with the desire to motivate, stimulate, to oversee the mass reindustrialization of America, including drill baby drill, and attaining and maintaining and extending total energy independence for America. And now he has undertaken geopolitical activity that is forcing domestic energy producers to buy into this new world and to expand American energy capacity, energy production. Strange how all of these very obvious follow-ons from this Iranian military action just so happen to ultimately suit the type of world Donald Trump has told us he wants to create. Definitely couldn't be any sort of a plan. Are you trusting the plan, Anon? The first sign that U.S. shale players are beginning to respond to higher prices and the admission that elevated WTI prices are here to stay comes from billionaire oil wildcatter Harold Hamm's Continental Resources, which plans to increase production shortly. Harold Hamm? Sounds like a patriot. Continental is increasing our capital budget, which will increase production, CEO Doug Lawler told Bloomberg in a statement. Lawler did not explain how much production will increase or how many new rigs will be brought online. Continental operates in North Dakota, Oklahoma, Wyoming, Texas, and has recently expanded into Argentina's Vaca Muerta. That is dead cow. As of the fourth quarter of 2025, Continental produced 475,000 barrels of oil equivalent per day, with 43% from the Bakken and 23% from the Permian. Before the conflict, Continental planned to spend about $2.5 billion in 2026, down 20% from 2025, as fears of a global glut emerged and WTI in the low 60s heavily weighed on shale economics. So they were going to decrease their productive spending because of fears of a global glut. In other words, an oversupply of oil with oil prices in the low 60s. So there's too much supply, and it's not profitable enough to invest in more production. Trump comes in and he says, drill, baby, drill. We're going to invest in more production. And they're like, we're actually going to reduce our spending this year from last year. And yet now, suddenly, geopolitical events have forced them into doing exactly what Trump has said he wants them to do. Strange how that happens. If you think that's because they want to help lower energy prices, think again. Any oil company that commits to boosting future investment thinks oil prices will stay high and wants to cash in. Former Yahoo Finance reporter Rick Newman wrote on X, responding to the Bloomberg story. The question now is whether Continental's move will spur other shale players to bring on rigs and increase production. Thank you for the kicks, Emperor Atreides. Josh Ham says, America requires a minimum of $70 a barrel to be economically viable, including shale oil and fracking. Right. They ultimately, with oil prices as low as they were, it was just not conceivable for American oil production to scale up profitably. But if you drive the prices up, yes, the consumer pays for it at the pump. But the oil companies suddenly become a lot more, there's an opportunity for them to scale up their supply. So you can actually sort of constrain that. And having this sort of industrial investment in the country is ultimately going to result in wage increases. So you should get used to gas probably being higher than it has been. It's probably not going to get down into the $2 range again. It's going to stay higher. But the idea is that you stay high, you keep it higher, you keep it from going way higher, and you bring up everything else around it. The question now is whether Continental's move will spur other shale players to bring on rigs and increase production. And if so, that may add industrial tailwinds for the U.S. economy, while also weighing on consumers through elevated fuel prices at the pump at first, before production increases and weighs down prices. And all indicators are that industrial activity in the United States is scaling up rapidly. It is absolutely cooking right now, which generally bears very well for jobs, wages, development, growth, all those sorts of things. Josh Ham says, I'm okay with higher gas prices if my wages are higher and grow faster than fuel prices. Yes, right. And that's really like that. That's the sweet spot. You need gas prices to be high enough to cover the cost of increased production and drilling and expanded capacity, but not so high that it actually has an economic dampening effect. Because gas prices going up does affect the entire length of the supply chain. But we're also having a lot more of the, bringing so much more of the supply chain back. So, there's tough medicine that has to be taken. And it's a matter of, are you going to take that medicine in a meaningless way? Or are you going to take it in a way that bears dividends down the line? And it's really stuck with me that Trump said regarding gas prices. Number one, he said that, he's like, of course gas prices are going to go up. They actually didn't go up as much as I thought they would. But he's like, I can't be thinking about all these sorts of things. I have to do the right thing. And he's got a limited timeline. He's got to get a lot done between now and 2028. And between now and the midterms. Like, both of these are really compressed timelines. So we got to move fast and break shit. Because a lot needs to get done while we have Trump. Because everything's going to be different without him. He is a singular generational figure. It's going to be a long time before we get another Trump. So there's a lot of stuff that only he can do that has to get done while he's with us. Yeah, thank you, Ketchup Man, for the reindustrialization updates. If you're not in the King Pill Discord, you're missing out. Our beloved Ketchup Man provides us regular updates on all the different development projects, the major factories that are being built, the expansion of waterways, shipbuilding projects, new trade deals, new investment packages, all sorts of stuff dropping constantly all the time. That doesn't really make it into the top line headlines, but there's this consistent, steady drumbeat of them that signal a lot of economic growth on the way. However, in order for that economic growth to take root in order for any of these things to take root, we have to start living as if they are taking root. Look at me set up a segue here. We have to start living as if these things are going to take root. That's how they take root. More people change their behavior. More people cotton on to the new way of doing things. More people begin aligning their behavior, moving whatever little tiny bit of momentum they have, pushing it in the new direction. And my president wants my president wants you to come serve him. And here is the great patriot, John Doyle, shout out producer Blake, John Doyle speaking on the significance of this State Department recruitment ad and why young patriots must heed the call. Listen up, young patriots. This is from our State Department.
As Foreign Service officers, you are sample Americans. And many people abroad will think better or worse of the United States because of what you are and what you do.
Be the face of America. You have a problem with the face of America right now? Well, you could become the face of America. You don't think there is a plan? Become the plan. You too can be part of the plan. Here's some John Tent for my great patriots. We'll speed him up just a little bit. He's a pretty fast talker, but I usually listen to him at 2x. So we'll listen to him at 1 1/4. And then, believe it or not, I have 2 more instances of John Tent after this one.
It is very significant that the United States State Department is allowing itself to be advertised this way. And the Foreign Service comes out of obviously a long tradition of American diplomacy that perhaps started with Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, but in the past several decades as well. However, more recently, the position has become overrun with like literal Redditors, as we will show you, literal theater kids who care more about freaking helping the world, all of that nonsense, more than they actually care about helping America, which is literally their job. And so the existing promotional material from previous administrations, if you look at it, it's filled with all the usual suspects: gays, theater kids, ethno-narcissist minorities, all these people who are proud to represent America, not because of their patriotism, but because of stacking their LinkedIn profile, getting to do their little Instagram stories. And I get to be a State Department person, all that, spreading democracy, because to America, what that means is just like imperialized gay race communism that spreads democracy, diversity all over the world, whatever. We need to replace those people. We need our own personal patriot great replacement. The Trump administration is right now sending a bat signal to you specifically, to who they specifically want to step up to the plate. This is also, like we've been talking about, we need young patriots to explore the world, learn languages, get a little bit of...
Listen up, young patriots. There is a bat signal that is shaped like you, and your president is sending it out for you. It's shaped precisely like you. You might call it a patriot signal. Are you going to respond?
But a dad lore, get a little bit of, a patriot skill set, and also just generally get hired in the government.
Dad lore.
That is very important. We have a jobs crisis for young people. Go do this. Go literally do this. Because the internal situation, or so I've heard, is like pretty much worse than you could possibly imagine. I mean, even after Obama, Brandon, the average bureaucrat that represents our country to most of the world is some just like DEI freak, some like idiot who cares about this insane idea of human rights, global welfare. That has to change, okay?
Oh, the civil liberties, and oh my gosh, what about the human rights? And oh no, it's so bad.
DEI is dead. We're done with it. President Trump is sending an extremely clear signal. All patriots go. Literally, Ronald McDonald. Testing standards, fitness tests.
All patriots
all of this
go!
Is updated and raised. That's good for you and bad for people that are maybe not so qualified. This is a meritocratic system. That's good. We understand the deeper implications of this. This is an adventurous way to serve the country if you are a high IQ patriot who wants to serve the country. I will show you the kinds of people that we're trying to replace, by the way. Look at this person, this ethno-narcissist bragging about being the fastest visa adjudicator at the U.S. Embassy in a European capital. What does that mean? That means burning through visa applications from third worlders trying to get to the United States and just rubber stamping them as quickly as possible. She self-describes as a U.S. diplomat, embodying my ancestors' wildest dreams. What does that mean? She references Get Out, unironically. That movie about how the real scary thing is white people. She talks about, contorting
the N-word,
blackness less abrasive. What are you talking? The article's a gold mine. We'll have some pictures kind of substantiating what I'm talking about so you can see that I'm not making this up in my head. You've got...
Yes, hello, it's me, a black guy.
I had to pause it because it would be too confusing to hear 2 layers of Doyle.
Got more of the same with other stuff. You've got like literal like dysgenic lesbian couples talking about how much they wanted to work for the government, how good it is that they're representing America as diverse to other countries. Is it though? You've got other stuff with like the interest being, of course, in aiding other countries more than actually representing American interests. You've got the theater kid types talking about black women, being prestigious for working at the State Department. More of that talking about breaking into white male dominated fields, literal Marvel memes, like absolute coal, everything that you would expect. It is extremely important that these people not be representing the government to the world. It is extremely important that you be representing the government to the world as a high IQ young patriot.
You need to take your government back from the Redditors. That's this video in a sentence. Young patriots, your president needs you to wage war against the Redditors. Engage in an insurgency. Take back our government from the Redditor shitlibs.
It is very important that people understand that
we're going to kill you. We're going to give you the death penalty or kill you.
Our little gay theater kid, Veep, West Wing, Marvel, freaking epic bad guy, BTFO, Mecha, Hitler, Drumpf. That needs to go. You had it. Curtains are closed. It's done. We are literally pulling you off stage with a cane because you are annoying and you are an embarrassment. All patriots go. You should look into this if you're not exactly sure where your direction is pointing you right now in your own life. I think it would be very promising, and clearly the Trump administration is saying to you specifically, we would like you to get involved. We would like you to carry the torch of your ancestors. We would like you to be our representatives on the global stage instead of these embarrassments who don't even view the global stage to be something to be occupied to advance American interests, but rather actually to basically hold American interests at bay and allow everybody else and all of their weird behaviors and cultures to come into America and ruin everything for everybody because they have a bone to pick with you, the patriots. So how about the best way to get revenge is by taking their job? Isn't that refreshing? Usually it's the other way around. Now the shoe gets to be on the other foot. You go take their job. Trump is literally begging you, Ronald McDonald, go, or I'm going to be a little cheesed.
There you go, Slutty Milk. He said the activation word.
Usually it's the other way around. Now the shoe gets to be on the other foot. Eased. Ronald McDonald, go, or I'm going to be a little cheesed.
You don't want to get him cheesed. All patriots, go, go, go.
Good afternoon, patriots. This is Agent Q.
And something magnificent has happened. The glorious emergence of the Asmondoyle. Patriot Asmongold discovers John Doyle, and we get to watch it happen in real time. And you're blackpilling? Look at the incredible things occurring.
One more. I want to look at some more stuff.
What we're experiencing now on the right in terms of like content, information, consumption, what have you, is actually that we won. And that is why things have gotten so stupid. What I mean by that is like anything that's going to achieve a kind of mass popularity is going to inevitably deal with the tragedy of the commons, right? I mean, you know this if you've ever had a particular interest in a band or a movie or something, and then
mainstream?
you like it and you realize it's great, and then...
Look at this. I'm reacting to Asmongold reacting to Doyle. I'm Patriot adjacent.
Everybody else finds out about it, and then they ruin it because...
And you guys are watching me. That makes you Patriot adjacent. Patriotception.
That's true. It's like hating Jews has gone mainstream, and then maybe the people that now, all these new people from like the Palestine movement that hate Jews, they don't understand all of the internal memes. They don't get all the other stuff. So yeah, they're coming into it, and they're like new fans. They're like new fans of the content, but they haven't been in the trenches.
The John tent.
It's dirtier. It ruins it. I think that's kind of what we're experiencing now, where a lot of, people who made it on the right wing as like pundits, talking heads or whatever, now they've realized how they can actually escape the niche of online right-wing politics, which is of course by appealing to a mass audience, which, no man has an audience. True, by the way. The only way that you can ever truly break out of your niche and achieve something like a mass audience is if you cater to the sort of preconceived dispositions of that audience. You're never going to be able to, convince tens of millions of people by yourself of like some new position. Like people sort of have these like baseline impulses and sentiments, and perhaps those have been propagandized into them, but nonetheless, that is what they retain. And so what I'm seeing now in terms of how everything is becoming so stupid is a dynamic where you've got all of these people on the right wing who tried to be models in Los Angeles but weren't pretty enough, who tried to be screenwriters in Hollywood but weren't funny enough. All of these people, they're theater kids. Theater kid occupied government, you may recall.
I like this guy. A lot.
Yes!
Oh, yep. There it is.
Join
all
the
of these people
Doyen!
tried to make it in some real way, couldn't.
The Doyen and the Roach Ranch mashing up together. What a crossover!
And then washed up into right-wing politics. And they do a decent enough job, I guess. I'm sure maybe they care about the issues, I guess. But there's always that what might have been kind of resting on their shoulder. And I think that what you see is when you have people like Candace Owens, for example, who are now actually breaking out of the plan.
As I said, me, right? I mean, I was massively popular. Like I used to do.
I'd already listened to this, so I wanted to see how he would react to this, but he kind of talked through it, so he kind of misses the reference here. But Doyle just casually slipping into the leaving the Democrat plantation reference while talking about Candace Owens.
Yes, hello, it's me, a black guy. Of the plan.
As I said, me, right? I mean, I was massively popular. Like I used to do. I was the most popular person making WoW videos. Then I was the most popular person that was doing like a lot of React stuff, at least on Twitch, or one of the most popular. And then I was most popular doing variety gaming. I was like at least top 5, right? And now I'm the most popular doing this. It's like really, I mean, damn, bro. Like, how about that? What are the odds of that? Damn, it just keeps working.
To use the Dinesh D'Souza
That's crazy.
Maybe I should have said that with Mrs. Owens, but escaping the plantation of like niche right-wing media or something, and now you actually have a big mainstream mass audience, and you're not just one of the big.
Is that a Trump? Is that a dude? Is that Trump as Buddha? Oh my God! I need to get that. Wow.
Not just one of the big right-wing.
If you ever read the comments on Doyle's videos, he has a particular segment of his commenters who are just so angry that Buddha Trump is in the background there. This is like some great spiritual statement that Doyle has made by putting Buddha Trump there. You know, Doyle's betraying his God by having Buddha Trump on his mantle back there.
Influencers, you're just like a big influencer, period. Though you did get your start in right-wing politics, perhaps you still claim that you maintain a flavor of right-wing politics.
It'll never work. It's like OnlyFans girls that try to go into being traditional housewives. Like, you're always going to be a hoe. Like
Jason Miranchuk mentioned.
Like Mia Khalifa is a great example. You can talk about Palestine all you want, but you can go to 1,000 political protests, but you can suck one dick. You're not a political activist. You're a dick sucker.
So true.
And you'll always be a dick sucker.
Problem is, now a lot of the colleagues of these people who share perhaps that same what might have been on the shoulder, they start to see not just the behavior of some like, normal influencer who's an Instagram model, who's a
Yeah, good point, Straight Buster. Too much focus on Buddha Trump and not enough on the Earl Sinclair figure. I think the Earl, you see him in the other shot. I would, if it was me, not to question the wisdom of our great Doyle, but I would have them switched. I would have the Earl Sinclair here, and I'd have the Trump Buddha over on the other side.
Streamer or whatever, they're achieving success. Someone who's a colleague, I mean, they would never be a colleague of that person. Someone who's, making a living, making a name for themselves on the internet doing right-wing politics. That would never be like a model that they would expect to replicate, that they think that they could be successful with, that they could kind of get away with venturing into. What I see now, however, is you've got a few people sort of leading this charge who are realizing that they can expand their audience beyond just like niche right-wing internet politics by appealing to those normie sensibilities, anti-elitism, anti-Western civilization, anti-war, all of this stuff, which is basically to say...
Bro, finally somebody else is saying this shit. Fucking finally. Oh my God. He's one of the first people I've ever seen say this that isn't basically just me, right? I mean, thank God. You can't turn something into a housewife? I've heard that before.
Hey, everything that like America, Europe, all of that is like bad, and we are the freaking people united.
Zach, join the Doyim. The water is lovely.
Against this. That is like what all of that means. That is how these audience people are like.
They're trying to farm third worlders.
Experiencing that. And the problem is, now you've got this kind of like, I don't know if you'd say like grass is greener situation or first guy in the pool situation, but I'm seeing people who used to just be very strict right-wing politics, very strict conservative politics. Now they are seeing what works. They're seeing that they actually can get more engagement that they've ever tasted before. They can get more exposure, more clout. And now they are allowing their message to kind of be watered down to accommodate for those masses who, absent that dilution, would never have had an interest in right-wing politics or whatever. That is why, fundamentally, the space has simultaneously gotten better on the issues and more retarded at the same time, which
That's a really fascinating thing that Doyle has identified before, that we've simultaneously gotten better on the issues while also getting so much more retarded in general. So sometimes it's hard to tell just how much we're winning because of how retarded everyone's getting. I mean, Trump was a prophet. I mean, he told it to us.
We're going to win so much, you may even get tired of winning. And you'll say, please, please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore. Mr. President, it's too much. And I'll say, no, it isn't. We have to keep winning. We have to win more. We're going to win more.
One of the greatest prophecies of our time. So true, Mr. President. So true.
I've been advancing that. It is true, even though it sounds a bit counterintuitive.
It's not true. He's totally right about what he's saying. He is like, I don't know who this is, but
what we're experiencing now.
This guy, John Doyle. Well, how about him? Patriot. I like that. That's it. That's all he says. I like this guy. What a good dude.
Patriot.
And yeah, that's it. And in other words, nobody's thinking for themselves, trying to get views. Yeah, they're trying to farm. They're trying to farm third worlders and like middle of the road people by creating these like milquetoast weird. Everybody can agree with this opinions. Like, oh wow, bro, like everything is bad, and you know, like we need to stick it to the people in charge. Like this type of like brain dead, socially acceptable, performative activism is something that a lot of these people want to buy into because it's easier for them to do that. Why don't you follow him? That's a good idea. I should. Yeah, there it is. And I totally agree with this. I think so. Absolutely. And is Sonathy your kid? I don't know if he is or not. I've got no idea. But like, I'm just saying that I think it's a big fucking problem.
Major power move here by Doyle. Getting followed by Asmongold on screen when... Where is it? Right here. Come on.
I should.
Oh, I missed it. You could tell it didn't say follow back. It just said follow. Doyle didn't even follow him. Asmongold followed Doyle first. Power move. All right, and John Doyle. One more from producer Blake. John Doyle issues a new White Boy Summer Challenge for the Big 2-6. You boys ready for this? If you're regular, loyal Doyle listeners, then you've already heard it. I was fucking cracking up. I was out walking in the wee hours of the morning, listening to this, making a scene, walking through the local neighborhood, listening to Doyle riff on this. This is absolutely brilliant, and I really, really hope that somebody takes him up on this. Oh, by the way, Asmongold, Doyle, DoyMHQ sends its regards.
Okay, here's what it is. You and one of your boys are going to schedule an appointment with a relationship counselor. Here's the plan. You're going to go in there, and you're going to say, okay, we're both going to put money on the line. I don't know how much it costs to get a session with one of these relationship counselor people. Let's say it costs like $200 or something. Maybe you need insurance. I don't know. Here's the game. You both go halves on it. Whoever loses has to cover the cost of the entire session. Here's the game. Go in there and talk to some like 30-something girl. She's got like a master's in psychology or whatever. She's a relationship counselor. You and your boy are going to be in a gay relationship together. You are going to take turns expressing why you feel that your partner is not accurately displaying, I don't know, the virtues of a gay relationship, whatever. Here's the game. You play ping pong back and forth. Anything you say that he is doing, he cannot deny. Anything he says that you are doing, you cannot deny. You can deflect, if he says like, I just don't like the way that he like something gay. You can just be like, why would you bring that up when you're the one? Like, start a fight. Make this person's day very uncomfortable. Whichever one of you laughs first or makes it obvious that you are just like fucking with this person for no other reason than you're bored, that person loses and then has to cover the entire cost of the session.
Earl Sinclair
so if you
spotted.
mentally prepare, you go in there with ice in your veins, dude, stone cold. I bet I could last like an hour. Just objectively horrible behavior, just putting in front of this person, like some relationship counselor, and just being like, yeah, it's so interesting how you say that when like you're the one who literally took my mom off life support to plug in your phone. Like some just like horrible behavior. Like you literally like purposefully put the wrong phone number on the flyers to find my lost cat because you didn't want to have a cat. And so then like we could never find it because like just horrible behavior, right? And then that is just so beyond the scope of what the gay relationship counselor is like able to deal with like he doesn't talk to me enough. He keeps getting AIDS. Like you're just coming in there just like, yo, he like killed my
He just pulled that one out. He keeps getting AIDS. Oh, the man's brain, the things that this mind develops on the fly is just unmatched.
He like killed my dog and I'm still not over it. And then here's the other part of the game. Anytime the counselor, and ideally you would make this like a weekly thing. You should ideally be doing this every week. It's like doubling and tripling down. It's like, make the total cost be in the thousands of dollars to where, your buddy's going to have to pay all that or something. Or maybe you get some other bonus. I don't know. You can make it your own. Here's another idea that I think would be funny. Anytime the relationship counselor even approaches territory suggesting like, maybe we need to consider if this relationship is really working for everybody. You immediately become defensive. You immediately like, who are you to say that? What are you talking about? You're here to work out our bad qualities. You don't know about all the good qualities. Like just something like that. Do that with your girlfriend. Do that with a dude. Declare psychological warfare on the therapist class, dude. These people suck. I hate them, and I want you to go make their lives more stressful and perhaps more interesting at the same time. So it balances out. It's a public good. There's your assignment. If you don't accept it, you're actually gay. That's the rule. You need to, you're like
Very
breaking
important.
out. You're shedding skin. You are emerging. It is a metamorphosis. For you to truly achieve heterosexuality, you must dance with the devil. You must do a little tour of service, acting like a gay man with your boy. And only then can you truly achieve heterosexuality. If you do not follow this task, you asked me, what do I do for White Boy Summer? I put it in front of you. If you deny this now, you are permanently gay. You are permanently a homosexual. So this is why you don't make a wish to a genie. There's always a catch. There's always a catch. There's your mission. If you don't accept it, you are gay.
The John Doyle genie. He has declared it so. How many of you guys are going to take the challenge? How many of you are just going to accept that you are gay? Yeah, Nevsky, we got to go traumatize the therapists. Go force your local therapists to quit their job. Make them so miserable they're forced to quit. Bankrupt the industry. All right. That is all I had for you guys today. Coming in right about the 3-hour mark with a little half-hour pre-show. Seems about it's about what I shoot for. And it worked. So thank you to everybody for showing up for the live show today. Please go tell all your friends that the Labe is now a morning show. Thank you for the contributions to the tip goal here. I'm sorry that the notifications were not working. I'll try to figure that out when I get up, because I'm going to bed now. This is my my new schedule. I went to bed yesterday about 4 p.m. So the way I'm thinking about it is, I went to bed yesterday at 4 p.m. and that's kind of like staying up until 4 in the morning. And then I took a Benadryl and I slept until midnight. So it was kind of like I stayed up until 4 in the morning and then slept until noon. And now it is, what time is it? Yeah, now it's like 11 p.m. for me, essentially. So I'm going to go to bed about midnight and then get up at like 6 or 7 and then work overnight, which is just, it's so perfect. It satisfies everything. It gets my my optimal alert time matched up with my optimal productivity window. I'm a night owl. That is just the I am having to accept it. So the Astrolabe will continue to be a morning show, and for those of you who are in the Kingpill Discord, or who would like to join the Kingpill Discord at kingpill.com, we will be having our voice chat on Friday this week. We're going to go from Wednesday back to Friday. Friday night, I think, probably works for people a little bit better for staying up into the wee hours of the night and talking about who knows what with the boys. If you would like to join us for that, then go to kingpill.com and sign up. With all that being said, I will catch you guys tomorrow morning. Make sure you follow the show. Follow if you want alerts. If the kick alerts aren't reliable enough, then you could just go follow the Telegram channel. I don't post in it other than just alerts for the show, so that could be a reliable way to get those alerts. Or you can follow me on X at Kingpilled, or if you join the Kingpill Discord, you'll get a ping in there when I go live as well. And as always, appreciate all you guys paying the bills. Tips.kingpill.com. You can hit it up anytime, and I'm going to try to figure out how to make the alert thing work overnight. You can also go to Cash App or Kingpilled, Cash App or Venmo at Kingpilled for both of those. Ryan says they're far too reliable. Woke him up on the West Coast. I would say I'm sorry, but I can't believe that you don't have your phone on like do not disturb or sleep mode while you're sleeping. So you earned it yourself, Ryan. That's just your inner patriot slipping out. You couldn't help. You had to be alerted. You had to know about it. All right, I will catch you guys tomorrow morning. For now, I leave you with Hulk.
When they took a shot at my hero, and they tried to kill the next president of the United States, enough was enough, and I said,